go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. All right. So we are now live. Hey everyone. Welcome to Proko. We got Tiffanie Mang here in the studio. Doing a demo for us. If anyone has any questions, just make sure you go to proko.com/556. I'll be pulling questions for her from that webpage. But go ahead and take it away, Tiffanie.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for those of you who are joining. I'm really excited and kind of nervous because yeah, I think this is my first live stream I've ever done, if I remember correctly. So before I started, I just kind of wanted to, I know probably a lot of you guys have questions about the materials. Am I looking the right way?
Yep.
Okay, about the materials and everything. So it's weird looking at myself.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go over that first and see if I can cover any questions. So right here, what you see in front of me, oh, it's taped. But if I open this up, ta-da, you can see that I'm using a fluid cold press watercolor paper. And this is a 6x8. And the reason being, I'm actually going to be painting 4 thumbnails today. I think that's better for me right now as I haven't painted in a while. So I think going small will be good for me. And I find that doing thumbnails, and I have some other thumbnails I'm going to show you guys in a minute as examples, are really good for practice and kind of warming up per se. And really great as warm up. I like to do thumbnails all the time when I'm going out to plein air paint. And I like to bring these fluid cold press arches. It is 140 pounds acid free. And I like 6x8. Here I have a 6x6. And they come in all different kinds of sizes. And here I have a larger one just in case. I have an 8x8. They come in 9x12. Another really good brand is Arches, but this is a little bit more affordable. Arches is a really good brand as well. And here at my palette, I have a Sta Wet Masterson palette. I alternate between this one and this one, which I got. It's a, I don't remember the brand, but Mijello. I forgot what the name is, but it's basically a watercolor palette, and I cleaned it for you guys. I did not clean this one, but I actually like painting on a messy palette, so we'll see how that goes. But this is basically watercolor plastic, and I use this sometimes as well for mentorship demos and other things because it's easier to clean than the sponge. And the sponge I'll let soak, and I'll re-wet, and I'll reuse the paint. And I use this sometimes for a couple months at a time. And yeah, so that's my palette and my paper. And in terms of brushes, I only always use a flat brush. This is a 1-inch flat brush. Yes, 1 inch, just checking. So I use a 3/4 1-inch flat brush and a round brush. This is Winsor and Cotman, if you guys can read that. It's a little blurry, but Winsor and Cotman 666 1 stroke. That's the brand. And Winsor Newton Cotman. And I also actually use Winsor Newton paints. That's my favorite brand, along with Holbein, which I'll show you guys in a minute. And this is a round brush. I actually don't even know what size. I think it's around 12. I actually found this kind of recently. It was in my pack of brushes, and it's kind of old, but I love it. It works great. So I'm going to be showing you guys just how I use these 2 brushes to get different kinds of strokes on a scratch piece of paper momentarily. But let's continue with supplies. So I forgot to mention that another kind of board I like to paint on, and I cut my own boards, is cold press illustration board. So this is Crescent right now. Canson's also a really good brand. And so right here, these are little 2x2s that I cut. And if you guys look at my Instagram last year, I actually did my own challenge where, because of COVID, we couldn't go out. I cut 100 of these little kids, and I painted 100 2x2 thumbnail gouache studies. It was a wonderful practice, a wonderful experience. I learned so much that I kind of want to make a book about it. I'm imagining a little mini book of my paintings with little insights that I've had, but that will probably be a couple years down the road. So I like to cut like this, and you can see they're pretty thick, like that. So I'll lay it down like that. And they're portable. I just put a bunch of them in the bag, and sometimes I'll just go out and I will paint like 6 I don't know, depending on how much time I have, 2 to 6 2x2s. This is the same idea, but these are just a little bigger. These are 4x4 and crescent as well. So I basically buy a huge panel of 20 by 3 inch illustration board, and I will cut it in as many sizes as I desire. And so usually once I get the scrap pieces on the bottom, I can cut those into 2x2s, and so literally nothing goes to waste. And I've cut even something as small as 1x1. So that's pretty fun. And in terms of brushes, so I have my water cup, which you can't see here, and I just have it's already dirty. Great. And I already have a giant, I was just playing around earlier, but I just have a giant bottle, and not a bottle, sorry, it's a 1 quart plastic cup. And in terms of paints, I'll be putting them out right here. So get a lot of questions on this. Like I said, I like to use Winsor & Newton, and I primarily use their brand, but I do have a couple Holbein. I like Winsor & Newton. I mean, all brands are great. I just like their colors a little bit more. It's a little bit less vibrant, I think, than Holbein. Not that Holbein's bad or anything. I guess I've just only used Winsor & Newton, and so I'm used to it. So the colors I have in my palette are white. I have, and by the way, I put these in no particular order. I'm not organized that way. It does bite me in the back, especially when I'm plein air painting, but I only use 4 colors when I'm plein air painting. But so if you're asking me if these are in particular order, it's like, oh no, I forgot to squeeze burnt sienna here, so I put it here, kind of thing. So got to work on that organization part. Some people are a lot better at that, but you know, I get used to the way I squeeze things, and then
whatever works.
Whatever works, kind of thing. So I have permanent yellow deep right here. That is my warm yellow, and I like to have this yellow. I have yellow ochre right here, which is one of my indispensable more earth colors. And because this is random, oh, where's my lemon yellow? Oh no. And I have lemon yellow, but I can't seem to, oh, I think I put it back in the bag, so. Lemon yellow, so these are my yellows. I have a warm yellow, I call this more neutral. This is like my neutral yellow, and lemon yellow is my cool yellow, which is right there. So those are my yellows, and white is very important to have a big tube of 37 millimeters. So I got 14 tubes of these at like one time, just to stock up. No, because they didn't have them anywhere in Jerry Artoramas, and I can find them anywhere. I think lots of people are painting during COVID, and everyone needs white, and so it was really annoying.
Yeah, do they have like an expiration date on these things, or do they
so.
last forever?
Oh, I don't know about forever, but I do like Viridian. Sometimes Viridian kind of tends to dry in the tube a lot, and so it's harder to squeeze out, but I don't think I've had a problem. Just don't get zinc white. Zinc white is just, I've had awful, it's just so gloopy, and it's not meant for at least what I like to do. So those are those colors. Then I have alizarin right here, and I actually just squeezed some fancy colors per se. I brought some quinacridone magenta, which is right there. I might be using it, I might not. Sometimes I squeeze colors and then I end up not using them. I actually forgot Viridian today, which was my main green, so that's okay. I have ultramarine here. I also do have cobalt blue, which is my cooler blue, and this is my warmer blue. There's a little bit of turquoise stuff on it. And I could squeeze cobalt right here, but I don't really use cobalt that much, to be honest. It's a little thicker. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit to show you guys the difference between those sort of values and hues. So I have my cool warm and cool blue, and then here I have spectrum purple violet, which is another color I love to mix sometimes with lemon yellow. That makes a really cool green. Sometimes I like to mix that with yellow ochre or turquoise, which I don't have on my palette. Yeah, so this is a really cool purple, but usually most of the time I'll mix my own purple. And then I have burnt sienna, which I really should have put around here in the warms, but I just squoze there. Sometimes what I like to also use is Venetian Red, which I didn't bring, but that's a really nice neutral red, kind of similar to Venetian, kind of similar to burnt sienna, but I would say a little bit more pastel-y. I don't know if that's the right word, but a little bit maybe desaturated, maybe. I'm not sure. I need to have that with me. And then I have Brilliant Green, which is a funny green. And by the way, I'll be telling you what my stripped down palette is. This is my extended palette, just to kind of go out and have fun, but when I plein air, I will only use my primaries. So it makes it easier to squeeze and everything. So this is Brilliant Green. I don't use this out of the tube. I'll always mix it with something here, and I get really cool greens that way. I don't really know if I'll be using these because I'm painting skies today, so I might not even use these colors. I just always have them squeeze out. And Linden Green is really great for foliage, painting landscapes, when you have that sunny day with the sunlight shining through the trees and everything. This, you need this green. You can't get that translucency in the leaves with just blue and one of these yellows. It just won't give you that same thing. I can actually show you later on a scrap piece of paper. And I didn't squeeze, but I have Holbein Pink, and I'll squeeze that here. You see, this is Holbein, by the way. So I think I was first introduced to this color by Peter Chan, and I saw that he was using it. This is just, oh, you know what? This is not even Brilliant Pink. It's just pink. But usually I'll use Brilliant Pink. It already looks pretty brilliant. So I might be using that for sunsets and such, and it's great for sunsets. Sometimes I'll whip that out. So that's kind of my wacky extended palette. Like I said, I might not be using all these colors. We'll see. Kind of would be fun also to even do a limited palette. I'll show you in a second. So this, for example, this sometimes I like to strip down. And this is an example of a limited palette where I only used ultramarine, yellow ochre, and white. That's it. And I don't really count white as a color, so technically it's 2 colors. This is another one right here. It was a mini I did on a plein air, and again the same colors: ultramarine, yellow ochre, and white. And I personally love this palette. So a tip for you guys, if you guys are starting out with gouache, I recommend trying these sort of stripped down palettes. And the reason why I love this particular palette with ultramarine, yellow ochre, and white is because it's simple. And another reason is because you're dealing with value first and foremost, and color temperature, which are really important, more important than color. So, you know, more important than getting that range of color, you're practicing value relationships and color temperature relationships. And it's a really good way, even for me right now, you know, going back to stripping down the palette, it's a great lesson for me. Now, when I go out to plein air, I will use white, alizarin crimson, permanent yellow, and lemon yellow, both of these, and sometimes yellow ochre to tone, and then I'll use ultramarine, and that's it. And sometimes Linden Green, but depends on what I'm painting. So this is my really stripped down palette. Sometimes I'll just paint with this, and then sometimes I'll add, just if I need to get something that's really warm. And to be honest, you can mix your warm from, that's red, yes, from alizarin crimson, it looked like brown, for example, alizarin crimson to lemon yellow. But if I need an extra oomph, sometimes I'll add a little bit of this, and yellow ochre, I will use this to tone my canvas, which I'll show you in a minute. So those are my stripped down colors, and sometimes I like to challenge myself to, you know, take out all the colors and just use the primaries, and you gain a great understanding of mixing colors, mixing your secondaries, and all the colors in between, all the grays in between, right? If you guys watch my video with Proko, I talk about grays. So grays is my love. So I love to talk about that. Before we start, I thought it'd be fun to show some examples of some other minis that I've done. These are all 4x4. So this is, you know, a great idea. You guys can either split your canvas, for example, on an 8x8, or you can cut your own boards. You know, there's a lot of options. And so I like to do small studies like this sometimes. Some here are some, I sold a lot of my 2x2, so to be honest, I don't have a lot left, and I just brought a few. I think this is a 2x4, but these are some 2x2s, some 2x3s, 2x4, you know, whatever size I can get. These are all done in plein air, so quick and dirty, and they're just really cute, and they make really, just honestly, you can build up your collection really fast when you paint small and efficiently like this, and it is really fun practice. But sometimes, like I said, I'll go bigger like this, and here a few plein airs I did from Sedona. These are all also done on crescent. This one's a little bit thinner, so you can see it's warping a little bit, but you can just sit it on a book. So this is a 5x7, and these are all 5x7s. This is a I forgot, 3x6. I can't remember. Let's see. I think it's a 3x6. I can't remember, 3x8, I think. And so sometimes I'll go longer format, which I was playing around with on a recent road trip I did with my boyfriend to Arizona, Sedona, and New Mexico. So I was playing with a lot of vibrant colors in this. It actually looks kind of saturated on the spot, but sometimes I'll also paint on watercolor paper, exactly like what you see here. This piece was done on watercolor paper, and I equally love that as well. And what I've done is, a lot of people ask me, do I varnish my gouache paintings? And I do use Gamsol, Gamblin cold wax, and it's a waxy varnish that I just sort of smear on top. It does get a little sticky, so I use a brush to do it, and I wash the brush, but this is actually protected now, so if water dropped on it, it wouldn't ruin. So I use that. I do it on illustration board as well. And yeah, it actually darkens and enriches the color a little bit. You can't even see all the color, maybe nuances as much, but it's getting a little blurry.
Yeah,
Hold it up. Yeah, I'll put it on the paper. Sorry, guys. And here are a few more same studies I'm doing. So these are all 6x8 studies. This is from Big Bear. Exactly what I'm going to be doing today, except I'm going to be focusing on skies. And these are some from Joshua Tree. Funny story, I hated all these when I painted them. Now I look back, I'm like, they're okay, but I hated them when I painted them. And so these are all done on watercolor paper. And this is another one that I did at El Matador, all plein air. Hated all of these when I painted them, but now I kind of like them when I look back. So it's kind of fun. So showing you the different kinds of papers that I can use, different sizes and everything. So just wanted to give a quick intro on that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and
we've got some references. I'll pop the references up on screen.
Awesome.
Will you be beginning with the upper left one?
Yeah, I think okay. I'm just actually gonna sketch. Now I usually use I'm gonna use a pencil this time, but I usually use a felt pen, and I think it's in my other backpack. So I'm just gonna use a pencil right now to just sketch. Now when I sketch, I'm pretty quick. I don't spend too much time, and frankly these I'm going to sketch all of them first, and then I'm going to paint them one by one. So this one is another, oh perfect, okay. So this is big clouds, and the reason why I chose these was because I've actually been doing digital studies of these, and they have been super fun. And I have to give a shout out to my boyfriend because he sent me all these pictures, and he just always supplies me with awesome reference and really a lot of inspiration for these beautiful skies that he takes. So I'm learning a lot just painting from these, and I'm not trying to put too many pen marks. The thing is, if I put too many pen marks, I don't want it to bleed too much. So the compositions are quite simple, and good thing, because let's see how these turn out. Since I've been teaching so much, I haven't gotten to paint a lot, so it's kind of unfortunate. This is the mountain here, and basically this is the sky here. I'm just gonna really quickly, all of them have a pretty low horizon, and I just want to get the big gestures and the big shapes. So I'm going to just sort of get that. And honestly, I rely so much on my shape, I probably it doesn't matter how hard I push, because I'm going to be painting over all of these. So I'm already fanoodling too much. That's going to be the glow right there. Oh, really quick, before I start, I wanted to show you why I like the hard brush and the round brush. So I started playing around here, but the reason why I use my flat brush, I will use that primarily for starting out a graphic, blocking out my graphic shape. So how I like to teach is that, you start off with the big shapes. That's really important, then focusing on the details. So, for example, I'll just take a random color and I'll just put it down. You can see I don't have that much water, so it's actually already doing the dry brush effect. Sometimes gouache can be finicky that way. The more water I put down, the more water I mix down, you can see that is a lot more watery. So gouache to me is all about the control of water and how much water you're putting in ratio to your paint, and vice versa. So if I wanted to get something really watery, for example, I would coat most of my paintings like this. This is the thickness I will get, something like this. And then I'll let it dry, and then if I didn't want that much paint, And it also depends on how thick, wet my canvas. I hate it when my canvas is too wet. It drives me nuts. I can mix it like this and get really interesting bleeds, which is sometimes what I like to play with in the beginning of a painting. Just let the paint go. And then, you know, as I get a little bit thicker, you can see now I'm starting to get a little bit of marbleization. When I paint, my brush is still pretty wet, so I'm just gonna clean it a little bit and dry it. And this is just a towel that I rewash. And you can see I paint like oils, which means my paints aren't cheap. I go through a lot of paint, but you can see how thick. Oh, that color's, hope it's not, it looks really off in my, it's gonna be really weird looking at my paint. They're like, wow, the saturation's not there. So it looks really saturated on the thing, but hopefully it'll look okay. So so this is how thick you can get it sometimes. And if I mix a little bit white, you can start to see even more. Let's see, you know, how thick I can get that. And that's how I get my highlights, just by mixing a lot more paint. So I'm gonna clean my brush off right here. And where's my round brush? So my round brush, I like to use, basically, I like to think of it as my dancer. So I like to use it really lyrically. I'll drag it down like this. And you can see I'm using a lighter color, so you can see against that, it's getting a really awesome textured effect. And again, that is just simply done by it. I didn't even dip this in water. I just kind of picked it up and dipped it in paint. And that's how I get that extra dry brush effect, which I love. And I do in a lot of my paintings. I'm trying to find, for example, in this one right here, this one, I dry brush the water in that kind of similar fashion with the round brush, and also the water in the back as well to get that thicker paint. So I love this brush. It's great for painting things like bushes after you have all your main shapes in. It's great for painting wires because you can get like a really thin, thick to thin kind of line quality like that. And so I use it a lot for line and my line quality. It's great for blending kind of like that, so I can take the colors and kind of blend. So if you're a beginner in gouache, I recommend that you just kind of spend some time and play around with the medium like this. You don't have to create a painting. Just kind of familiarize with how wet it can get right here to how dry it can get right here. I can even spray and reactivate, and sometimes I'll do that. That's basically how I erase, because you can't erase, right? You can't, not like digital painting where, you know, Control Z, oh, my mistakes are gone. So, you know, here, this is how I erase, and I'll oftentimes swipe up like this, and then I'll be like, oh, that's gone, and let me start over and paint that over. So essentially I'm just getting a thinner layer. What I like about this paper is that you can actually, you see, I can essentially erase like this. No, I have to have a clean towel. So it's like picking up. So I can actually, you see, get back as much as I can. It's not working because I keep smearing new color, but let's see.
It is removing a lot.
It is removing a lot, I know. So you see, and I can't obviously get to the white of the paper, but it is removing a lot, right? So that's how I erase sometimes. And sometimes when I do this, I find completely new opportunities to redesign my painting, and it becomes really fun that way. So that's how I work my two brushes. I'm gonna leave that to dry here. Okay. So I don't know how long these will take, but depending on how long they take, I might start a larger demo. But I'm gonna just take my time on these little thumbnails right now. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just toning my canvas. A very light, watery canvas. I'm very messy with gouache, by the way. Sorry, Sean, if I splattered you.
No, that's fine.
You might be in the splash zone right now, so I might be like, oh, I'm sorry. So right now I'm just making sure it's not super wet, just because I like a little bit of bleed, but it's sometimes when it's too wet, it becomes a little uncontrollable. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the top left painting. Now, a lot of times people start with the sky, or whatever painting Sean has on. For me, I have all four of them on a reference sheet, so I'm just seeing them. So with this first one, all these, by the way, they might look simple, but I don't think they will be for me. I think I'll really struggle, just a precursor. So what I'm looking at is I'm really loving the neutral grays and those subtleties between the blue mountains, a slightly warmer small mountain in the front. I'm not going to paint it exactly how it looks like. I'm going to simplify the foreground, add a little bit of those darker trees. But I think what I'm going to start with first is I'll probably start with the ground and the mountains. So I'm going to try my best to explain why I'm mixing the, oh wow, okay, so my paint's already kind of dry, so I'm going to just give a quick spray. I don't like it when paints are too wet, so I'm going to just really spray it just a little bit. Oh, I forgot to say, this is an awesome spray bottle, by the way. So I recently got this at Blick, and it's the fine mist spray, and it's definitely worth the money. It's a little more expensive than a regular spray bottle, but it just sprays, it just gives you such a nicer kind of even spray. I keep looking up there for the reference. I keep forgetting it's right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and block that in. Now there's a couple ways I could block in right here. I could go this way, or I could go this way. And I kind of did both. So I'm going to block that as a value for now. I'm going to go ahead and block in the mountains first before I do the trees. Now I hardly ever work from consecutive order, which is from background to foreground or foreground to background. I don't think that way. I just work whatever I want to paint first, to be honest. So I'm going to go ahead and, now I know the mountain's going to need a lot of white. Now you're probably wondering, does the color reactivate underneath? And for me, it doesn't really. So for me, I found that all the color I have underneath is going to be okay. So I'm using the round brush. The paint is a little bit more watery than I'd like it to be, probably because I just sprayed it. So I'm like, dang it. I hate it when my paint's watery. It for me personally, it's a little bit harder to control. That's okay. We shall make this work. So you can see it's watery because I'm putting it down, and it is sort of just blooming a little bit. Just fine. We'll work with that. Trying to get that little crevice there. So I've just blocked that in. And my goal right now is to basically block in as much as I can without focusing on little things. So I'm going to actually try to see if I can block in the foreground mountain. That might be a bad idea, but I'll show you guys anyways to see what will happen. So I know it's too wet right now, and I can't probably get a definite shape, but you see how that's blooming right there. So I know that's too wet. So part of sometimes it is sort of gauging when is a good time to put something down and when is waiting. And the good thing is gouache doesn't take that long to dry, so you don't have to wait that long. So I should probably wait, shouldn't I? So
I can ask you a question if you
yeah,
like.
Of course.
Sure. So Kelly Smith is asking, I don't use gouache, primarily oils. I tried them recently and noticed they dry a value step or two darker.
Yeah, that's the other big thing I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
That.
How are you supposed to keep your value relationships considering this and mix a palette? Perhaps I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And basically, as you are painting, you'll see it drying. So you can actually adjust those colors as you're painting. And I have that issue still. When I paint, it's not perfect. I'm painting pretty thick right now. So I'm going into the sky layer now, and I'm painting pretty thick. But you just have to sort of adjust as you go. So as you're painting, kind of be aware of all the colors around you, and kind of see what value they're drying, and sort of incrementally adjust there. So yeah, like you'll see this dry real time, by the way. So it's gonna dry darker, and I'm probably gonna be like, crap, like that's already way too dark. So I have to mix a lot. That's why you need a lot of white in gouache, and that's partly why it becomes so expensive. So I'm just gonna, now another thing I should have done and I didn't is leave the tone, and I kind of want to leave the tone right there. I'm gonna see if I can just kind of, it's gonna look a lot nicer, by the way, when I rip the tape off. I'm just gonna let it dry a little bit there. I'm gonna switch to my round brush now, and I'm going to now figure out how, I'm gonna try a little bit of quinacridone. I'm not sure how to get that vibrancy and that sort of the pinkish sky. So that's gonna be a tricky one. I don't think quinacridone. See, I already have to squeeze more paint. It's crazy. I used it all my little demo, little abstract demo. So I'm gonna squeeze a little more yellow. Now,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
I could ask you another question. If
Yeah,
you're,
go for it.
Tiffany Brown's asking, when looking at a photo, how do you decide what to paint and what to leave out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's all about where I want my focal point to be. So right now, if I'm painting and my focus is not those little hills, those mud hills and everything, I'm gonna leave that out, and I'm gonna focus on the sky, because I know my focus is the sky right now. So a big question is squinting at what you're painting. Oh, that's not the right value. And grouping and figuring out, okay, when I squint, what stands out to me and what can I know I can leave out. So that's why the reason I have a lot of my paintings small in front of me as thumbnails, I don't have them blown up or bigger, is because it helps me to be able to see what is needed and what is not needed. So oftentimes I'll actually have to let this dry, because what's happening is I need to dry brush that, and I know that right now that wetness isn't going to let me get those more brighter colors. So what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to also see if I can mix a little bit of add a little bit of foreground image. And you see what I'm doing is I'm brushing in with this round brush right now. I could also do it with my flat brush, but I just feel like doing it here to show you guys sort of how I alternate between both. So here I can paint a little bit thicker, and I'm just gonna block in. Oh my gosh, it's getting really hot. I don't want to take off my so I'm just brushing in those slight. Now it looks a little bit too dark, so I know I'm gonna need to adjust my values a little bit, maybe mix a little bit of yellow ochre and put that in. So I'm going to just push that in like that, and I'm gonna just drag a little bit of that color into the ground, into the foreground as well, just to sort of bring that. Now my sky value, you can see already, this value is too similar to this. I need to actually do another layer, I know, of dry brushing. It's too hot, I need to take this off. To separate the mountains from the sky. But let's see, what I could do is let's see, I think I might have to wait for this to dry for the time being.
Do you often jump, like when you're painting, you have 4 photos up. Do you jump from one to another? We can always hop to another one, and I can pull another reference up. If you want.
Yeah, I'm probably going to hop in a second.
Okay.
But you can see on my palette, that's quite thick. And I want to actually just see if I can my paint's very gloopy right now. It's a little annoying. It's like I can't pick up color. It's slightly frustrating. So I'm just picking up a little bit of, that was too much yellow ochre. And I'm just going to pick that in. I'm just going to see if I can, that has to be the right value though. So sometimes I will start putting in. And the other thing why I like bopping around is because it not only helps you with, drawing, you actually start seeing more things when you kind of take a break from it and then go back. So I definitely will see. I'm going to show you how I can also paint trees. Oh, my brush is splitting a little bit. Why is it doing that? That's annoying when it splits. So when it splits, I just put a little bit of water, and I'm going to, so I can also drag up like this, and that's a little bit of the wrong color, but I'm going to, so I can also just kind of pull up like that as well, and I can get some interesting shapes. And of course I'll fix those later. I'll get those shapes, and I definitely want to pop those subtle warms in the sky. But as a thumbnail, again, these are thumbnails, and these are just meant for to be studies. So I'm definitely not at all trying to get a detail, but I'm definitely going to go back to this one and see. So okay, so I'm going to go back to this one. We can go to the left one, which is also or the right one, sorry, which is a completely different kind of scenario. So this one, I'm going to really try to be careful to leave the tone of the paper, because I know I can leave the tone of the paper, that lightness, and it will actually work as the light side of the mountains, I think. Maybe I could have toned it a little bit more, but I'm actually going to start off by carving out with the sky. So with the sky, I'm just going to mix, I'm going to reactivate my paint a little bit. I'm going to mix a little bit. It's very interesting gray. So I'm always thinking, one of my favorite mixtures is burnt sienna with ultramarine. To get that sort of, I'm going to put a little bit of brilliant green. I kind of forgot my Viridian today. So this is pretty watery right now. I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of block in with that and see how that feels like. And it's probably way too dark. I already know that. So I'm going to just mix a little bit of white in. And sometimes this milky texture is really fun to play with. I'm trying to focus on those big shapes, and I'm trying to just, honestly, I'm trying to loosen up right now. And painting small like this is a great way to sort of, I'm trying to leave it the tone, but we'll see. If I don't leave it the tone, I'll have to sort of just repaint the light side of the mountains. I think I put the horizon line just a little bit too high for my taste. And for the white of the clouds, I'm going to actually probably paint over that. So I'm gonna, instead of leaving that light, because I kind of blocked into it a little bit too much, I'm gonna leave that. Now, I might be running out of palette space soon. You can see very quickly I have no aim, I have no rhyme or rhythm to where I mix my, sometimes I do, and then sometimes I'll develop I'm just gonna go ahead and block in the relationship of the sky. And honestly, the most important thing with this is, while getting value right, is to also, just have fun and sort of loosen up. I have a really funny story, actually, when I went out and painted at the beach. And I did a 6x8, and it was not going anywhere. It was just awful. And then what I did was, I was almost going to pack up and just call it quits. And then I decided to just split my canvas up and try to do a bunch of 6x8s. And those, I figured out my problems a lot faster than spending 40 minutes on a 6x8. I figured out a lot of problems doing the thumbnail studies in a faster amount of time, which is really funny. So this I know is going to be a little bit too wet. So you're probably noticing all the light parts that I do, I need more white. I'm going to use a lot of white, which is good that I brought 2 tubes. So I'm going to block this in, squeezing in a lot of white. Oh, sorry, my brush is casting a shadow. Okay, so here, I'm going to just, you can ask more questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's
definitely
see.
wrong value.
Manzanube is asking, hi, I'm a big fan of watercolor, and I've seen that many people combine them with gouache to get different effects. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, Nathan Fowkes does a really good job. I don't do that, but so I don't actually know, but a lot of people use gouache white to mix with their watercolor, and that will be, and that's how they get thicker paint with watercolor. So I don't know too much about that, to be honest. So yeah. But you can definitely try that. I know I'm gonna have to. So now I'm thinking inversely. I'm trying to still let this dry a little bit. I know I'm gonna need a lot of thick paint, but I'm just gonna block in the shadows of my. Now it's funny because I've done a heavy paint study of this particular painting, and I've done a digital study, and now I'm doing a gouache study. So we're gonna see how all of them compare. I'm just gonna block in my value. This one's gonna be really tricky. I already know. I have to relax my brain and see.
I've got another question for you if you'd like.
Yeah.
David Schneider's asking, do you use a mobile easel when you go out painting? And if so, what kind?
I have many different boxes. So sometimes, actually what I used to do is I used to just paint holding, like I would just sit on the ground when I paint holding. And then more recently I have Tad Retz's box, which I use sometimes. I have my friend Leo's box, which I use, and he has pochette boxes that he sells. And then I use a la Prima box, which is more of an oil painting, but it's an 8x10, and I like that one because it has, basically you can put all your canvases, there's a drying area, and it's kind of like an all-in-one box. And I have a Strata as well, so I have 4 that I interchange, and sometimes I'll go back and forth, and I'll play around with that, with all of them, and all of them I like. I have pros and cons with all of them. Some are heavier than others, and they make it a little bit more cumbersome to bring around, but they have everything. And some are more lightweight, and my friend, he's my student right now, Leon, he has a really good box, but he has managed to really just really make it sufficient. So he'll just carry his box. He has a pouch of paint. He'll squeeze all his oil paints in before, or his gouache paints, and he'll just walk out and he just has a box he carries, and then he made his own apron and he puts all his brushes there, or he'll just carry it in a backpack. So it's super lightweight that way. And so that has been he has really figured out how to streamline. So I'm still actually figuring out my setup for my shade box. So I'm trying to figure out what the best option is. Sorry, it's really hard for me to talk and paint at the same time, so I feel like I'm rambling as well. But yes, now I do use an easel, but oftentimes I will just paint sitting down on the ground. So that's an option as well if you really want to be light.
Yeah, especially with these small little ones that you do.
I don't need it. I just hold them. Yeah, so I'll just hold them. I'll sometimes balance the palette on my lap or something, and I'll go that way. So it all depends on what I'm feeling, and I'm gonna just add a slightly gray there to just sort of balance that out. Part in the mountain. Yeah. Kevin
Webb is asking, what's the advantage of using gouache versus other mediums like acrylic paint?
I've only used gouache, so I've never used acrylic, and I know some people do, and it's great. I think acrylic is more plasticky from what I've heard. So there's that. And I think the benefits of gouache versus oil, for example, I mean, oil is great because you can also, you can maneuver the paint around more. It doesn't dry as fast and all that stuff. But gouache is actually, it's much more portable. And the reason why I like gouache is I can fit everything in a backpack and it will work just fine. So I like gouache for that reason. But I think every medium has its pros and cons. So oil, you can move more around, and it dries, so you can fix your mistakes more. Whereas gouache, you have to kind of paint over and layer, kind of like, oh, I can't get a vibrancy that I want. That's interesting. I think my palette is actually biting me in the back and in the ass right now. I'm getting a little bit. I'm trying to get a really pure blue right now, but it's so I'm painting pretty thick right now, as you can see. But I would recommend just trying all the different mediums and finding what works for you and what you like. Some people, maybe they find gouache isn't their thing. Wow, that's a really bad shape I put there. And some people find that, they really love it and they love the portability. So I think every medium definitely has its pros and cons. And I think it's important to try it out. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah.
Trying to think, and let's see. It's kind of interesting seeing my painting up and seeing how it's like, because usually what I do is I actually step back and I'll be stepping back all the time.
Yeah.
So now that I can't do that, I'm looking.
Look at a screen.
I'm looking at the screen versus here just to see, and it's really. I think I'm also gonna have to let this dry before I do another pass. And I'm actually gonna go back to this brush, so I'll just sort of alternate back and forth between shapes. And what I'm mixing a lot of I'm going to use a lot of white. I already know that. I'm mixing ultramarine, yellow ochre, and alizarin to sort of get this desaturated cloud color that's like really watery. My palette is, unfortunately, I feel, not cooperating with me right now. Sometimes there's those days where like, yeah, it's just the perfect consistency, and sometimes it's like, oh wow, it's not. So, but it's okay. I think I'm gonna wait for this to dry before I block in those lighter shapes. And then also I want to see, maybe right now I could dry brush a little bit of that yellow ochre. Lemon yellow into that. Yeah.
Taylor G is asking, what are your tips on learning color? Like 10-minute daily photo studies, daily observational sketches. Do you have any recommendations?
My number one tip is to go out and paint. You can't find any substitute for that. So, I know there's a lot of great artists out there who don't do that, but that's the way I learn, and that's the way that's how personally I really got better at color. And there's nothing I really think that substitutes the going out, the experience of painting from life, seeing colors on the spot. This is something that I really like to emphasize on, because for one, actually it's funny because I was going to teach plein air class at CGMA. It didn't work out, but I wrote out this whole sort of pitch on why it's important to have a plein air class in digital. And there's a lot of things. For one, I'm going to just take some time to talk about this. For one, oh wow, that's me. Okay. I don't like looking at myself. God, I hate seeing myself on camera. I look gigantic. Okay, so for one, you have no control Z. So I think one of the biggest things is that you're problem solving on the spot. You can't, you can do digital plein air too, which is great. So digital plein air, but then you can kind of take away your layers. When I'm working with this, I'm working on one layer. I don't have control Z. So you're problem solving on the spot, which actually really enforces your design skills, and that will carry into when you do a studio painting, and that will carry into when you're doing a digital painting. So that's a really big factor. I actually talked about this at Vision X Live. Another one is that you will see more colors on location. So if you really want to get better at color, you're going to see more colors on location than if you were doing a photo study from a photo that you took. It definitely helps if you're there and you took the photo and then you went and do a studio study. But if you're just painting a photo from the internet, I see this all the time when I paint, when I teach students and they say they just took this picture from the internet and they take those colors exactly, and it sometimes doesn't look natural, and it's not the colors that you would see. So if you're going to paint from a photo, I would recommend painting a photo that you took because you were there and experienced it. So that's a big thing. You're seeing more colors on location. Why am I blinking on all the other reasons? No control Z, see more colors on location. I should have had this memorized. You are learning to group and simplify. Not that you can't do that from a photo, but from plein air. Oh, because you have time restraint. That's why. Because you have time restraint, you can't spend 40 hours and working on one painting. You're forced to sort of make those immediate decisions, whether they're good or not. You learn from them. So you're forced to group, you're forced to simplify, and that's a really important thing as well. And in terms of getting better at color, definitely plein air. Master studies is another great thing. So how I started off was just doing things like these. You can see the paper's warping a little bit. Master studies and studying from your favorite artist. Edgar Paint's always a great one to start from, because his landscapes are really straightforward and he's really great at color. I would pick people who are not so abstract. William Wentz, really great. A lot of great artists. Arthur Streeton, Clyde Aspabeg, Scott Christensen, Kwang Ho, a lot of really good artists that you can study from their still lives, how they do portraits and how they do landscapes. Scott Christensen has really great gouaches, John Burton as well, Mike Hernandez, particularly if you want to get better at gouache and really mixing at color. And I would say in the beginning, when you're trying to get better at color, don't spend like 10 hours trying to make a perfect painting. Time yourself to 45 minutes and then move on, because you're going to learn more that way from doing quantity over quality. Because you're probably, the more you spend something too long, you're going to get tunnel vision, and then that could be time spent in the beginning. Okay, as you get better, your cycles change, and I might spend an hour on something, or 2 hours or 3 hours versus 45 minutes. So in the beginning, I'm saying it's better to be able to do more and just get more, not be too attached to your paintings, and keep moving on to the next one. So that's what I would say for getting better at color. Timing yourself and doing thumbnails as well, so that you're not able to really spend too much time, like what I'm doing now, kind of 20-30 minutes each, and then go to the next one. So I hope that was
nice. Yeah, and if anyone has any additional questions, we got proko.com/556 should be above our heads. You can go there now. That's where I'm pulling questions from.
Awesome. So I guess I'll go ahead and go back. I'm also getting hungry. I might get I have a little bar next to me. So let's actually go back to the first one, because I think maybe that might have dried, and I'm going to try to see. And I actually don't even know if this is going to work, because I actually don't think I have the correct colors, and I need some super artificial color to sort of put that in. So I'm mixing Brilliant Pink with. So now I'm going to show how I'm going to dry brush some textures. See if that. It's not working. God damn it. That vibrancy is just not showing. So let me see if I can. I don't think quinacridone. I needed opera pink and I didn't bring that. That's unfortunate. So, you know what? I know what I'm going to try to do. So when this doesn't work, I just try different color combinations. I'm going to try lemon pink with quinacridone. No, that's not quinacridone. Doesn't really get you that vibrancy, does it? I'm going to try lemon. I think my lemon yellow is slightly contaminated, so I'm going to.
Would you like another question?
Sure.
Imran Hussein is asking, how can I improve my shadow design? I know the basic concept of how light and shadow works in a form, but I struggle a lot with designing good shapes of light and shadow.
That's a cool question. I would recommend doing matrix studies. That's something I love to give my students. Matrix studies will really help you just explore literally your light and shadow. Basically, matrix studies are 2-value studies where you're eliminating the middle value, so you just have black and white, or really any 2 colors that you want to choose from. So I have all my students do matrix studies. If you ask any of my mentorship students, that is usually my first week assignment, and that is a great assignment, because I can see from the get-go who knows how to design and who doesn't know how, like any, their fundamentals, who knows how to design their shapes. Because the whole thing, how I see it, is that the light doesn't exist without the shadow, and the shadow doesn't exist without the light, right? So when you're carving out a light shape, and that's why it's so important for me to think about what shapes I'm putting down. Because if I'm putting down a light shape, I'm inversely, like right now, if I put down the sky, which is a lighter shape, I'm putting down I'm carving out the mountain as well, right? I'm kind of tweaking the shape of the mountain. Everything exists with each other, and therefore it's, you're affecting. I feel like I'm not making sense. Am I making sense?
Making sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm rambling and I'm slightly like out of body experience. It's like a really weird thing from thinking and talking. So the light doesn't exist without the shadow, and the shadow doesn't exist without the light. So really thinking about when you do matrix studies, if you put down a light shape, you're also carving your shadow. And if you're putting down a dark shape, you're also carving your light. Now, how I work is I usually put down my shadow shapes first. You saw I put down the mountain, right? No, I put down the ground, the mountain, and then I work towards the sky, versus most people, they'll do the sky, mountain, and then foreground. I just look at actually what my darkest shapes are, and I'll carve based on that. Another tip is to think about your straights versus curves. Really distilling your shadow and light shapes you're putting down to simplified shapes. Am I dealing with a straight? Am I dealing with a curve? Do I have a good balance of rhythm with those straights and those curves? And even before you start off with shape, starting off with line and breaking down a photo you're working on with the rhythms, with lines. A great person to study design is Yuchida Masayasu. He's this paper artist that I recently fell in love with. And if you look at, so basically he creates all his paintings through ripping pieces of paper and putting them together. It's crazy. And then creating a painting like that. If you look up his work, it's absolutely phenomenal. So why it's phenomenal to me is because you have to think about your shapes that way. You're layering paper. You really have to know what shape, what texture, the edge, everything. You think about everything. And if you look at his paintings, his works of art, I mean, they're not paintings, but they're works of art. Their composition is so intentional. It's mind-blowing. So so he is a great one to study for that. Doing to get better at shadow and light, doing matrix studies of your favorite master artists. Like Edgar Payne, like I said before, he's a great one. And any other artists that you admire. doing matrix studies will really help you figure out how they're designing as well. And that is really valuable to distill from. So I'm actually going to fix the shape. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut into the shape of the tree now, because now that I've gotten some distance, not really, but I've gotten some distance from it. Usually I would step away, but I'm tied to my chair right now. So I'm going to use this to... Oh, that was interesting. I picked up a color I didn't want, so didn't mean to have that lighter value there. So I'm going to just brush that, and I'm mixing brilliant green with burnt sienna. And I often like to do that. I like to mix warms and cools together. I always like to mix warms in my foliage, because that just makes it that much more interesting. And you're not just getting one cool color. You're kind of getting a mixture of a warmer, earthy color like burnt sienna, and then balancing it out with... kind of like how they look there better. It's funny. I wonder how they look there. So I'm gonna show you how, like, I don't like the shape of this. I have to now basically mix back. Oh my gosh, I'm using so much white. It's insane. Who bets I'm gonna finish this tube? I bet I'm gonna finish this tube easily for thumbnail studies. Can you believe that? So I'm going to now try to mix back that color of the mountain. So it's basically a lot of white. Now I slightly regret not cleaning my palette, but that's okay. Oh, wrong value, so I need to fix that. Oh, I know why I was using the wrong blue. Okay, so maybe something like that. I'm gonna brush in, that's about right. Now this will be a true test to see if this definitely dries darker, and it might. So now I'm just, you see, I'm poking into that tree, and that's how I get my interesting shape. So I actually think a lot in terms like that. I think I like to treat myself as sort of a carver, a sculptor, and I'm sort of poking. Ooh, that was a little bit wrong. And I'm sort of, now I just have to blend it in a little bit. And I don't use, a lot of people, I don't use small brushes. I like to actually use big brushes, and I find that I can manipulate them in any way that I want to be able to get sort of those strokes that I need. This was a wrong value right there, so I'm going to smudge that out. I put some sort of green there. I kept the tone here, and I think the original photo is actually less purple, so I'm going to neutralize this purple. And a lot of times I will take colors that I've mixed already, and I'm just going to now brush in a, ooh, that's a nice color, a kind of a neutralish, warmer gray, and I'm gonna brush it just on top. I could have used a flat brush or a round brush, maybe cut into this shape just a little bit. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that is what is going, oh, I forgot it was taped. That is what's going to. Now I know there's a slightly lighter value sky there. I'm going to try to get that with lemon yellow and lots of white, a little bit of brilliant green. And I'm going to take that, I can't move it. I'm going to take that, I'm just going to brush it in just like that. And that's how sometimes I will get a little bit of that. I like to do this tapering effect where, ooh, wrong value.
Would you like another question?
Sure.
Gorabroy is asking, when I try to paint, I'm always caught in the details, and the painting becomes more like a photograph. It never has the simplicity and energy like your work. How can I develop my imagination to simplify a painting?
Ooh, I am spraying all over my iPad. Sorry guys, I just realized that. Oh no, okay. Shoot. Give me 1 second, sorry, give me. Oh no. Okay. Few things you can do. Sometimes if you are using a photo and you have a photo editing app like Photoshop, what I like to do in Photoshop is I like to go, I think it's Photoshop filter? I can't remember, but it's one of the tabs up there, and it's noise and median. And what that does is it will basically blur your whole painting, but keeping the values. And that's a way for you to be able to be like, oh wow, that's how I would look. That's how it would look like if I was squinting. sometimes what you can do is also try not enlarging your photo that you're painting from and painting just from a thumbnail. Like, don't enlarge it on your computer or your iPad. Like right now I have all of them as thumbnails, like they're this big, you know, like this big. So I don't have each of them individually. I have each of them on a page, and that I'm looking at it smaller. That will prevent you, hopefully, from going too big. And then another thing is, if you wear glasses, take off your glasses. Like, I wear glasses. I can wear them right now. I'm gonna look like a nerd. Maybe I do. I don't like. I look so. So I usually wear these, but I'll take them off when I'm painting, so I can basically be blurry, see everything blurry, and it just helps me simplify more, and I don't get caught up in the details. And this, using a 1-inch flat brush will really help you. This is probably my one answer that I have. Using this, you can. I mean, I've learned how to use this so that I can go here and I can get a corner of a brush like that, and I can get a dot. You see? I can get a dot just like that if I wanted to, no problem. But if I really wanted to, I could also do a really big stroke. And using, you know, not having a lot of brushes, and again, this is my way. It's not the right way. It's just my way. And some people have a lot of brushes and they make it work great. I am lazy, and so I don't want to have to choose between lots of brushes when I'm going out to paint. So I have simplified it for myself, where if I can make it work with a flat brush and a round brush, I will do that. The lowest I'll go is probably 3/4 inch. I don't ever use a 1/2 inch really. I had a brush and I never used it. I think I gave it away. So that's what I would do. I think this is probably your best bet, using 1-inch brush, and that's it. Don't let yourself use anything else. Try that and let me know how it goes. See, that dried darker, interestingly. So I need to mix more white in, even more white. It's a tad, it's too green for me. So I'm gonna just push that in there and just add a little bit of, that might dry darker. So you guys look at that and see if it dries darker. I'm gonna move on to something else right now. So add a little bit of houses there. Now this one I wanna go back and I wanna try to add the crest of some of those houses. And like I said, I feel like my lemon yellow is contaminated. But I'm gonna use my round brush now because it's my dancing brush and it's my lyrical brush. And I like to sort of now kind of crest. So I'm sort of just cresting the tops of those clouds and seeing if I can get the essence of cloud shapes while not thinking of cloud shapes. And what I love to share with my students, and something that has really helped me, is to, when you're painting something, to not think of what you're painting literally. For example, if you're doing a study of an apple, right? You know an apple's red, you know that's right, or you know a tree has a trunk. What does a tree have? A tree has a trunk and leaves and what's the last? And branches, right? And branches. So when you think that way, you're probably going to paint pretty literally. Okay, you're going to go, okay, first the trunk, then the branches, then I have to paint the leaves. Versus how I see it is, I see, for example, one big mass as a tree. I see the silhouette of the tree and I'll paint that first. And how I actually do it is I'll paint the silhouette of the tree and the trunk all pretty much one shape. And then I'll break down that shape, maybe a slightly lighter value for the trunk or darker depending on what the lighting is. And then I'll actually poke in my sky holes, because you're working on one layer, after I painted the silhouette. I won't do trunk, branches, leaves, and then try to poke sky holes by delicately painting leaves. I'll think actually the opposite, and that's actually helped me looking at the relationship of shapes more than the objects themselves. To me, everything's relationship of shape. Right, so when I paint a beach or rock, you know, I go to the beach and paint rocks, it's very easy to get hung up on all those rocks. I'm like, oh my God, there's like this jut and this crevice and this, and then very soon you'll just get overwhelmed, which is what happened to me. I couldn't paint buildings that way. I got really confused with perspective, and all that was really boggling for me. So I moved to Poland for some time working on Loving Vincent, and I was forced to paint complicated Polish architecture, and that kind of helped me overcome my fear. So another little side lesson for that is paint things that you're scared of, because that's the only way you're going to get over it, right? So ooh, I just found a cool color like that. So I'm just brushed in a little bit of a lighter value there. And I think I saw a question about Loving Vincent, actually.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Side Shave Laura said, can you talk about the production pipeline for Loving Vincent? The movie's incredible. How'd you manage to make a film entirely out of paint? So.
Lots of drowning in paint. Yeah. Fun fact, my hands were green for 2 months after I painted. Like my nails and the crevices in my hands, I kid you not, I probably have cancer or something, but no joke. But my hands are green. I don't know why. That seems to be the most popular color that we mix, even though there's a lot of colors. Yeah, the pipeline was crazy. So basically, I went to work on the film in 2016, and I'm really working on not saying by the way, so you can count how many ums I say. Bleh! And I first saw the application, my friend sent it to me. And I applied, heard back 2 months later, and they said, hey, we would like you to come to Poland to test for working the film. And I was stupid, and I thought, oh, can't I just test in LA and paint a test for you in LA? And of course it wouldn't work because you needed to work in their studios. And so I actually did fly over in May to do a 3-day test. So that was the first part. You have to pass the test in order to even be on the production. The test was the hardest test I've ever done in my entire life. And I studied animation. So my background, my major is actually animation. And I thought, yeah, I have this under my belt. I paint, I do oil painting, I do traditional painting, I studied animation, shouldn't be that hard. And I went there, and there's 5 other people testing in our group, and they were testing people in swarms at that time. And the painting supervisor basically gave us like a 5-minute rundown of Dragon, which was the animation software. And he said, this is a shortcut for this is this, that's where you mix your paints, this is where you're gonna get your brushes, you have 3 days, go. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so you're basically plunged into this whole new world. Good thing I had arrived there 2 days before to sort of get acclimated to Poland. Also, no one there speaks English very well, so that's another thing that was quite hard to get around. And so I did the 3-day test. It was funny because the first day I thought I was going to fail, because basically I painted the first frame, which has to be scraped off, right? And then you paint the next frame, because that's how animation works. But I had to get my first frame approved by the painting supervisor. And he came in and he said, oh no, you're painting way too academically. That doesn't look like Van Gogh. I think you should start over. So I actually started over in my first frame, and I was way behind by then, because you need to animate 6 frames, and that doesn't sound like a lot. But it was a lot. And so I basically was set back my first day. I called my parents the first day, and I said, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to come home, so it's fine. I'll see you in a week or something. And then I just chugged my way through. I just distinctly remember I didn't eat lunch or dinner. I was so focused on painting. We worked, from 8 to 6, and I was just so focused on getting it done, I wasn't even hungry. And so then after we all did the test, they all called us over, and this is how they accept people. They say, oh, you all did a great job. You guys all pass except for you, and they'll point to one person. That's it. There's no, it's not finesse like here. So it was rough. Good thing I passed, though. And after you pass, you have to do 2 months of training, 2 weeks of training, which you're still not in the production yet. They kind of test you on a few more shots. You paint Gouache and Armin, who are the main characters, and then you animate a few more frames, and they coach you a little bit more. And then after that, they say, okay, you're officially part of production. So that's basically the whole thing. And I have to owe Loving Vincent to my me getting better at mixing color, because how it works, and this is sort of how the technical part of it works. You are sitting in a room, you have a camera behind you, and then you are painting on a 2 feet by 3 feet canvas. But what happens, and I'm sure you know this, the colors that you mix, when you put it on and take a picture on the canvas, the camera changes the color slightly. Yeah. And you need to go by what the camera, not what your eye sees. So it's almost like math, where it's like, okay, you get to know your station, your camera. Let's say my camera always makes blue look more green. Then I have to figure out how to mix a color that's not what I see, but what the camera sees. And so it's almost like a mind game. And so you on every shot you do, you spend a day just mixing colors. And then you spend a day just painting the keyframe, because that keyframe, that first frame, has to be approved by the director before you can even animate. So they're like, okay, your colors are good, or no, you need to fix your colors here, this and that. So you can sometimes spend up to 3 days painting the first frame, only for it to be wiped out, and then you start animating, right? So,
There's paint.
oh my God, this is what happens to me, guys. This is bound to happen. This is signature Tiffanie Mang, just getting paint all over herself. So I'm gonna wipe myself and spray. How did that happen?
That always happens to me, where you're like, I did not expect this, but now there's paint everywhere.
Oh my God. Okay.
That's cool.
Okay. So anyways, continue with the pipeline. That was the gist of it, and I got to paint 5 shots, which was really fun, of all different people, and it was which is rare, because usually once they assign you a character, you're basically painting shots of only that character. This is gonna really annoy me, so I need to clean this. I know I'm gonna get it everywhere. And a fun story is I actually got to paint Dr. Gouache's face, which was the size of a penny. So I was using a 2-haired brush to animate his face, because he was saying, chop, chop, Louise, you know the drill. And so I had to actually animate his mouth, saying that, and his face was the size of a penny.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun. And then the last shot I did was a huge face of Armand, a close-up of him. And so it was like complete opposite. So it was fun to do a variety of shots, and I'm really thankful for that.
And how long were you over there painting?
6 months.
6 months. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And after
great.
that, I did a really fun backpacking trip, and painted even more, and traveled across Europe, and it was very eye-opening.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Would you like another question?
Sure.
Michael Smith is asking, if you have to put a painting aside for a few days, do you find it difficult to match the colors and values when you continue where you left off?
No.
No.
I think just that comes with practice, just from kind of knowing how gouache works, and but that's a very good question. But no, I think that just comes with practice of being able to know, like, okay, I know that's going to dry too dark, or sometimes, I mean, not that I get it right on the first try, I don't. Like, I put that value down, and look, that dried darker. See, insane. Look, that dried darker. You see, real time, that was lighter. Do you remember that? That was lighter right there, and now it's almost too dark for my taste. Damn it. That's annoying. So I need to fix that, because it's too saturated right there. That's annoying to me. Okay, so I need to fix that really quickly. So I'm gonna just dry brush a little bit, and sometimes I'll work like this. It's super dry right there, and I just dry brush and fix the value like that. It's probably there. That's a little better. You probably can't see it on the camera, but it was annoying to me, so I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna work on this one a little bit more. I kind of like the gesture of my mountain, so I might kind of keep it like that. I don't want to overdo it, but I'm gonna mix. Guess what, guys? I need more white now, so that's fun. Because I'm gonna brush in right there. And a funny story, I used to hate the round brush, and now I will say I use my round brush for probably 3/4 of my painting. I'll only use a flat brush in the beginning to block in, but the round brush has pretty much become an indispensable kind of tool, whereas before, when I first started it, I was like, I hate this brush, I don't know how to use it, how do I use this brush? It didn't make sense to me, so I was only use the flat brush, and I'd only paint with a 1 inch and a 3/4 inch, and that was it. So now I've grown to love it. So I've grown that you can't discriminate against brushes, and sometimes what you think that you may never learn, you can end up learning. So fun stuff.
Taylor G is asking, do you have tips for practicing good brush work?
Yeah, do what I just did on this and practice this, just experimenting. And then another thing you can do is doing timed brush studies. So if you time yourself, you're going to be thinking about your brush strokes more. You're going to be thinking about where you're putting your strokes and how you're putting your strokes on and how much surface area you're covering. So let's say I'm timing myself, which maybe I would do, but I'm not going to, because it's hard to talk and count your strokes. I was like, maybe I could try that. I'm like, no, maybe I will. So timing yourself, okay, you're going to be much more aware of your strokes. So let's say you can do a 50 stroke one. This is another assignment I love to give. 50 strokes, 20, 30 strokes, 20 strokes, back to 50 strokes, and see how you've sort of evolved. Things like that are quite fun to do. So I think that's a great way to be more aware of your brush strokes. This is annoying me, these colors right here. I'm so definitely going to use a tube.
Kumo's asking, how do you learn to determine what colors are warm versus cool when they're from the same hue?
That's a good question. So basically for me, if the blue is leaning more towards a purple, that will be a warmer blue to me. And if, for example, I'm using blue as an example, if it's leaning towards the greens, that will be kind of a little bit greener, just because red is warmer than green. So that's how I think of it. Although one of my students brought up a really good question. He's like, but can't it be both, because green also has yellow in it? So in the end, it's all relative. That's how I look at it. It's all relative, and it really helps. It all depends on the painting, because I could mix a straight gray and it could look like something completely different in this painting, and your eye would be playing tricks on you. So it's good to start off with knowing, the primaries. Yellow is a warmer color by nature, red is a warmer color by nature, and blue is a cooler color by nature. Secondaries will have aspects of both warm and cool, because you're mixing yellow and blue, red and blue, and red and yellow, right? So orange is so warm because it has both warm colors. But within the hue, it's like subgroups within subgroups within subgroups, and that becomes, I'm looking at it. that becomes the fun part. But my first epiphany with color temperature, when I realized that I could get I could get an interesting painting was literally just by shifting temperature. I didn't bring it because I don't have it because I've sold that painting, but that was the wrong value. Okay, that was too dark, too light. Was this painting I did of this complex scene in Amsterdam, and it was a city scene of people sitting having beers and stuff like that, and I was painting the buildings in the back, and they were kind of a silhouette, so it was a rimlit kind of scene. The buildings were in shadow, and I accidentally mixed a bluer tone, and then I mixed a little bit of red, and then I shifted that, or I mixed a little bit of red, and I put it on top, and I realized that I got the same value, but it was shifting from a bluer to a more purple color, and that was my first epiphany when I went, wow, I can subtly shift like that. I'll always remember that moment because it was so cool. And that's my whole trick. I tell this to everyone. It's shifting color temperature within the same value, and that's why it's so important to have a very clear value structure first before you start that.
John Neimeister is asking, when adding colors not present in the reference for interest, what are some of the things you like to think about when choosing those colors?
Oh, I need a moment to think about that. That largely comes from, I don't know, I think that really comes from intuition, because sometimes, I'm trying to see if I have an example here, like in this example here, my reference photo didn't have those pinks, didn't have, the browns and everything. Or I actually put red here, and you can't really see it, but there's a little bit of red in the foliage. You don't see that in a photo. Part of it comes from experience, knowing that it will work. But part of it comes from my whole theory of shifting slight temperature within correct value, right? So I know this is a light shape. I'm not going to go super dark. Like, I'm not going to put a red that's too dark in value, but I'm going to shift slightly between yellows, maybe a little bit of light blues and reds, and it's honestly, it's experimentation. So it would be, it comes from sometimes putting things down and then remembering that worked. I cannot get a vibrant color. That's really annoying. Something about my colors is just not. So then I need to paint thicker and thicker and thicker until I get that sort of vibrancy, that yellow that I really want.
Kyla Tomlinson is asking, hey Tiffany, thank you for the demo. I'm loving it. I'm also from the animation industry. How do you balance your time to be able to develop personal work?
Right now I'm not. That's the short answer. Yeah. So I by the way, I completely messed up that shape. See, I don't like that continuous shape. I kind of liked how it was more loose with the shadow. So let me figure this out really quick before I answer that, because that's gonna annoy me. And this is what it is, though. It's pushing and pulling. You're you're pushing and pulling shadows and light, finding that rhythm that works for you. What am I doing right now? Okay, hold on. It's really annoying me. I need to see. Right now what's happening is I'm too mirrored to the photo and I'm not using my brain. So it's like, how could I make it more interesting? I don't know. Sometimes I just have to play around and maybe put this in shadow and see how that works and have a little bit. I don't know. So I'm gonna have to play around with those shapes because I'm not liking that bulbous kind of thing right there. But I think I'm gonna need to let it dry a little bit. I'm also going to see if I can squeeze a little more pink. I will answer your question. Who is it? I have not forgotten.
Kyla Tomlinson.
Kyla Tomlinson. That name sounds familiar. Okay. I'm going to...
And if anyone has additional questions, I got a link up top. Ask your questions at proko.com/556. That's where I'm pulling from instead of the YouTube live stream chat.
Yeah. Hold on. I just wanted to put a little bit of pink at the top here to see how that feels like. Just to brush a little bit of that little variation there. So I'm going to try that. That feels okay. So right now, I'm not. I will say, right, to be perfectly honest, this is, guys, to be perfectly honest, my first gouache painting in 2 months. That's the longest I've ever painted. I'm going to be just totally open. I'm a little embarrassed because as a teacher, as someone who, they should be constantly painting, but that's what I mean by cycles. And right now I'm in a cycle where I'm teaching so much and I'm also working a full-time job. So I'm working 12 hours a day, which I don't recommend to anyone. It has taken a big toll on me mentally and health-wise, that it's tough. And so I would say, if you don't teach, if you're not teaching like I am, you just have a regular job, it's perfectly possible. I would say finding your routine is really important. And actually, this is a good point where I want to bring up, and I actually was going to put a story about this or a tip, but I find that for me, it takes about 1 week for anything to set in as a routine. Might take a little bit longer for some people, but I found that when I picked up reading, it took me a week to just read every day in the morning for me to fall in love with that routine. And it could be the same for anything, drinking coffee, or not drinking coffee, which is what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to cut off coffee. It's my 4th day right now. Just a big only 1 cup of coffee a day. I think routine is extremely important. And some people, I don't have a routine, but I think I like a balance between spontaneity, but knowing what you're going to look forward to. And so, I think for you to balance that, you can say, if you're a morning person, you find out that you're a morning person painting, figure that out for yourself. For example, I don't like to stare at a screen in the morning, so I don't like to necessarily do a digital painting in the morning. I like to read or work out in the morning. I get that out of the way, and that really helps. I like to paint at night where no one's going to bother me, so that's my routine. But let's say you like to do a painting in the morning. Do the painting in the morning and do that for 1 week, and you'll find that soon you'll be loving that routine so much, it'll be a part of you and it'll be a part of your routine. I had a talk, Lynn and Jeremy Fensky did a talk from mentorship, and they brought up a really good point where what they'll do is they'll do a sketch almost every morning. I don't know if they do that now, but they used to. And so they both start off with sketches, and then they do their full-time job. Because what happens when you do the sketch, you have an excitement to carry on that painting. But once you start color, chances are you're not going to do your daytime job. You're just going to keep painting, which is what I would do. It's hard to control that because you get so excited about your painting. So do that no-tan sketch, which is what Jeremy does. He has beautiful no-tan sketches. Or do that line sketch. Leave it, marinate on it. And then when you're done with work, it's your reward to work on that sketch, or to work on that painting. And then you can have a glass of wine, or you can relax, and you can and then you can continue that sketch, and it's that rewarding feeling that is great. Maybe you like to do everything after you're done working, and you like to focus on one thing at a time. That could be a rhythm. Find your rhythm, find your routine, and do it for a week, and you'll see that it will start to embed in, and then do it for another week, and then soon you'll have a consistency, and that's most important. But what I find hard is like when you go on your whim, because I have, you know, one moment I'll want to paint and the other moment I'll be like, I don't feel like painting anymore, you know, and if you go like that, you're never going to get a painting done. But if you say, no matter what, I'm going to do this, and don't give yourself another choice, then you'll do it, you know. So that's mine. I'm going to grab another towel really quick.
Yeah, I know when we Stan and I talked to a lot of people at Comic-Con who were successful artists, and they're like, yeah, the more success I got, the less I got to paint and draw.
Yeah,
the more I had to like
reverse.
work on other stuff.
Yeah, it's usually an inverse. Like I've talked to a lot of art directors, and they say, you know, it's cool having that role, but you don't get to paint at all. So I'm really thankful for my job. I love my job at Cartoon Saloon. So I just get to paint all day, and the studio is wonderful. So I'm lucky in that way. But then at the same time, I don't get to paint anything for myself at all. And it's just through demos. So this is the first time I get to paint for myself, guys. So yeah, it's cool. And I was really nervous, but we're having fun. So I'm going to go ahead and start this one, which is a beautiful monochromatic one that I really, really like. I think my boyfriend's sleeping there. It's funny. So funny. He's gonna be mad I said that. So I'm gonna squeeze.
So we're gonna jump to the bottom left.
Yes.
Cool.
Do you mind if I eat a little bit of this?
Yeah, you can go ahead and.
Is that bad?
Nah, it's fine. Go for it.
Are you sure? Okay, I feel bad. I should have eaten lunch before, but I didn't eat anything. All right, breakfast, but okay, I'm gonna jump right into this. So this is beautiful, beautiful. So I'm mixing ultramarine, burnt sienna, and some white, and this lends itself to beautiful shape. So I'm actually just gonna go ahead and I'm going to just put a big swipe of stroke like that. And I could, oh, you know, too late now, but I should have left the tone, but I didn't even think about that. Poor planning on my end. So I could have left the tone, and I'm going to leave the tone. Wow, that color looks really different there. I'm going to leave the tone on the bottom where there's a slight glow right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to block in the mountain, and I'm switch back to my flat brush. I can also be very lyrical with my flat brush, and I just absolutely love that about it. The flat brush is my first love, and the round brush is my additional love.
Talal77 is saying, I see some elements of Richard Schmid in your artwork, which looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Have you been influenced by him in any way?
That's a really big compliment. Thank you. No, I love his work, and I've never been to his workshop. I'm curious what aspects they see. I'd be curious to know. Sorry, I was just thinking what I was doing right there. I'm gonna switch to my round brush to get that bottom layer. You know, I think I'm gonna. But yeah, I definitely love. I have his book A la Prima, and it is a wonderful book, and definitely I love the way he puts down. I love his mark making, his shapes, his value, his composition, organization. Everything about his painting is wonderful, and definitely influenced by him, by the way he sees and interprets, and he just has such a freedom in his painting, which I think anyone could learn from, and it's just wonderful. So yeah, he's definitely one of my a great painter out there. I recommend his book A la Prima, a great book. I was reading that, and it was, you know, it wasn't anything that I didn't know per se, but it was just a really great review to see someone talk about it in their own way. And his other book, Landscapes, I think it's some Contemporary Landscapes, or the Richard Schmidt Landscape, that's a really good one as well.
I think he has an A la Prima 2.
A la Prima 2. I have the A la Prima 2.
Yeah,
so
I think that's like a better version
one. Yes,
than
yes.
It's like an updated version.
Yes, exactly. So I have A la Prima 2 because I didn't have the money to spend both of them. But the 2 is basically just has everything that you need. It's a little bit weird. I can't move this, so I'm trying to get around the brush strokes. Thank you, though. That means a lot.
Do you know if gouache has kind of like fumes like oil paint often does?
No, but it's not good to leave on your skin.
Okay.
I know that. They're toxic just as much as oil paint is.
Okay.
But, you know, I probably should be wearing gloves right now, but but I'm not. So. I probably should be. But, I mean, nah. It's my yellow ochre is kind of gloppy. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. This is such a nice setup, by the way. I just love it. It's like such a great... I might have to take this and...
Yeah, no, we're welcome to do it.
Like the side is it's easier to see, I guess, than the top.
Wayne Lamb is asking, what's the best way to learn value, digital or gouache?
You know, I learned the hard way through when I used to do all my plein airs. My plein airs, when I turned them black and white, value didn't read it at all. So I actually went back to do master studies. I think constantly turning your paintings black and white to see, and then you'll see tendencies of, oh, I usually make my shadow sides always too light, or I make my light sides too dark, and you'll see these tendencies within yourself. Do a bunch of matrix and 3 value studies. That's what I recommend. Making sure it reads in that. Do 100. You know, do sepia toned studies. I don't start off, by the way, you guys didn't see me, I don't start off in sepia, which you can, and I could try to do it with this one, and it would be fun. So I'll show you how I do it in here, but I kind of have it in my brain already. But starting off a sepia tone is a really good idea, and I would say just do a bunch of value studies, and you'll soon get better even before you like it or not. There's kind of no shortcut around that, and then do a bunch of master studies and then turn your paintings black and white, I would say. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I think I just mixed a lot of the wrong color here, so I'm trying to salvage that. I'm trying to find a distance. I'm trying to find a rhythm with this. So this painting is actually, I think, quite difficult because I have to find a pattern with these sky holes. And so this is what I mean. You see, I painted the large mass, and then now I'm refining a rhythm within that. And you know, I think I want to go back and fix that shape really quick. So this is what I mean. I'll see something and I'll go back to another painting and I'll just fix. That's not the right value. Ah, I'm ruining it. Okay. Here.
Kavita is asking, do you have advice for changing careers and pursuing animation?
I did the opposite. I kind of left animation for a little bit and went for fine arts. So now I'm in both, and it's hard because I like both. And people have told me, like my mentors have told me, if you're really serious about fine art, just go into fine art, because if you hit it hard, you'll be a really great fine artist. And I see that, and like Mike Hernandez has told me that, and I just love film as well. And I can't, you know, I love the collaboration aspect of working in a studio, and I also, you know, I don't want to give that up. So I'm in a weird situation right now. But so they want to go into animation.
Yes. Yeah. They say I'm in advertising for graphic design.
Start taking some animation classes. I would say the first thing is networking, going to events such as Lightbox. And other events like WonderCon or Comic-Con where you can meet different artists. That's how I first started off, getting an internship. But first of all, you know, making sure your skills are good, right? So say that your painting skills are there. I would say networking, getting to know people, finding a mentor, I think is a really good idea. And taking classes that are related to animation. So CDA has some really good classes. CGMA has some really good classes. And that's also how you can network. Schoolism, you know, lots of great online options out there that, you know, frankly, you don't even need to be physically. You know, CGMA, Schoolism are online, and I think CDA, because of COVID, has switched online as well. And so the combo of taking classes, practicing on your own. I mean, part of going to animation is having that portfolio, and less is more, I would say. You know, it's not about having a lot of pieces. It's about having a few good pieces. And networking, I would say, really reaching out, not being afraid to reach out to people and saying, hey, I want to get into animation. I really admire your artwork. Don't be, okay, here's my tip I have on networking, by the way, okay, because I see this all the time when I go, I don't know if you see this, when you go to Comic-Con and then people, they just go to a booth, they go, hi, can you please look at my portfolio? And then they just talk on and on and on. And then they don't really get the cue that they've taken up, you know,
too much,
you know.
Yeah.
A tip that I have, I mean, not that you can't show your portfolio, but a tip that I have is, you know, besides asking them to look at your artwork, try to connect with them on a non-art level.
non-business
level. Try to get to know them, be like, oh, you like skiing? Oh, that's awesome. I went skiing last year in the Alps and it was such a cool, and they'll remember you. They'll be like, oh, that's the girl that skied, and she, you know. So I do that all the time. When I try to talk with them, I try to just engage with them, not just about, oh, thanks, do you have any art tips? Oh, wow, I love your art, I love your art, I love your art. You know, they probably get that all the time. You know, you're not going to stand out from someone who just compliments, you know, profusely, but everyone does that. You know, but if you know how to talk and you're a good talker, and also if you reach out on Instagram, you know, I've had it before where people just go, hi, can you look at my work? Thanks. You know, not even introduction. It's the biggest turn off you can ever get, you know. So be cordial, introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm so and so, I'm a fan of your work, or I really admire you do this. I was just wondering if you had a few tips. And that's going to be way more approachable than the first, you know, example. So try to connect with people on a non-art level, and they'll chances are they'll remember you more for that. And you'll also be remembered as someone who knows how to strike up an interesting conversation. You know, part of animation is unfortunately that networking and that getting to know people. Trying to figure out how to make this mask look more interesting. I might have to switch to my round brush and do something quite drastic. I'm just gonna go for it. Let's see, mixing some I'm really reluctant to cut. Yeah, I think I have to do it.
Just
go for it before you even know. So I just dry brushed and did something. My best paintings are when I'm not thinking too much and I'm in a flow state where I'm just, before I can even think, is that working or is that not?
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of do it already. I'm actually gonna mix. I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of cadmium red because I feel like this is just really too just a teeny bit.
Golden Scarlet is asking, I've never painted with traditional media before. I usually paint digitally. Do you have tips or exercises that might help me understand this medium better? Or maybe like if someone's more used to digital.
Sorry, that's wrong. Yes, I do. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sean, you're such a good You're such a good moderator.
I'm here to help.
I'd be so much more nervous if you weren't next to me. But it's funny because usually I don't like people next to me, but I feel very comfortable with
I feel like I'm not breathing down.
Yeah. I don't like to paint with people. That's actually the thing. I like to paint by myself. So
I feel the same way. I'm always like 100 times more stressed out when someone's behind me and I'm drawing.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah, so I'm very outgoing, but when it comes to painting, it's like very much I need my space, and I don't like to paint. I don't like a group of people. Which is funny. I mean, I like painting workshops and stuff, but that's different, you know.
Yeah, you get like a crowd reaction versus like a mysterious internet number of internet people that you aren't looking at. So master studies is a great thing. Starting off with just, you know, a 6x6, not too big, not 8x10, not 9x12, just a small study. You'll learn more that way using a 1-inch brush, covering more surface area. I was going to say volume, but that doesn't make sense. Covering more surface area. And an exercise that was actually in the Proko video that I did was basically trying to get colors of the same
value, a different colors of different color temperature and saturation of the same value, in to get them to match. And I can do a quick. Should I do a quick?
Sure.
thing?
Yeah.
Maybe I can try.
Yeah.
So, for example,
If you haven't watched Tiffany's video on our channel, like definitely check that out as well, because it is very detailed and very good.
oh, thank you. Sean did all the editing. So, for example, if I want to mix like a mid value and I'm trying to get better at color and mixing, I'm going to try to, my goal is to basically get different values and different color temperatures. And not different values, I'm sorry, what am I saying? Different hues and different color temperatures of the same value. So, for example, maybe I'm going to go blue, but I have to mix more white into blue because blue is a darker value to start with, right? To maybe have that. And I don't think that's the same value. I think I need to go a little bit darker. See, that's a different saturation, a different value. Maybe I know quinacridone is kind of a mid value, so maybe I can put something like that. And hopefully, if I turn these black and white and I'll just have a row, you're training your eye to pick up on similar values. So I'm gonna maybe mix this yellow right here, and that might be this more darker yellow might be a mid value. Maybe mixing some, I'm going to totally mess up my palette like that, if that's okay. Maybe getting this purple, that's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to probably mix it a little bit lighter. Oops, too light. So anyways, my goal being, these are all different saturation and different hues, but hopefully if I turn it black and white, which I don't know how close I am, but that color looks really different. It should be the same midish value. And that's how I get good at training my eye to see, for example, if I were to smudge this, these could be beautiful shadow colors, you see? And now I've just gotten a beautiful range of shifts within warms and cools, all of same value. So actually that's a good way to know if you're doing it right. If you smudge it and they look about the same. I could do that for a higher value. So let's say I wanted to do a bunch of higher values. I'm gonna do yellow. Maybe I'll do a little bit of pink. I'm doing a very quick job right now, so it's not perfect, but maybe I want a red, but I know red, this alizarin crimson is a darker value to start with, so I'm gonna need to mix more white into that. So I'm gonna squeeze this, and I'm going to mix.
Yeah, the speed in which you're hitting every color that's the same value too, that's like impressive. How fast.
Yeah, it just comes with practice.
Yeah.
And that's a gray that I know might work. That's such a beautiful, I love these colors a lot. Maybe I could get a green. Now that color chart that I showed in the Proko video is what helps me a lot, and that was started, I have to give a shout out to Yana Villette, if you're there. She was one of my mentorship students, and she made this color chart. She's a very sweet student, and she made this really beautiful color chart that I actually now share with a lot of people, and it's on her Instagram. And that color chart helped me understand the innate value of colors, and basically at what value a color will reach at their highest peak. And that's very valuable for me because, so now I'm smudging. You see, now I can blend these, and it's a beautiful blend of, all these colors, all these grays kind of coming together. And I know they're just about the same value because they blend all right? So I can keep doing that. You don't have to do the blending thing. It's just for me to show you now how I'm seeing if they're subtly shifting. So the trick is that if you know they're the same value, you shouldn't be able to see the edge of something when I put it down. Like that was too dark, and I know I need to mix a little bit more white. Ooh, even more white. Now this gray can be the same value as this yellow. That's what I'm trying to show you. And even though one's warmer and one's more saturated, you can still get the same value, which a lot of people don't think about. They think, oh, warmer colors are usually lighter and like them green and blue, but you can have the exact same color, the exact same value of a blue as a yellow based on the innate value of the color. Like ultramarine is innately darker. That's why if I were to match with this row, I would have to mix a lot of white into ultramarine because that is a darker value to start with. Does that make sense? So I would have to mix a lot of white into that versus yellow is a lighter color to start with, so I don't have to mix as much white, and that will give me a lighter value to start with. So this is a really good practice. I would do, if I had black here, which I don't, I would say, okay, I'm going to mix this mid value, this lighter value, darker value, and then you would have, you know, your swatches of black and white that you want to mix in, and then you put the rows of color next to it. So it might dry differently though, so we'll see. It might totally dry. So see, interestingly enough, that's too cool to me right there. So I now need to actually go back to, and I quite like the energy in the sky right now actually. So I'm happy with that stroke. But what I do, this is a color temperature thing, I want to warm it up. So I'm just mixing yellow ochre, permanent yellow deep with white, and I'm gonna brush that in and warm it up slightly right there. Maybe pop a little bit of hot warmth right there. Maybe right there as well.
Wayne Lamb is asking, he says, I noticed when you're holding the round brush, it looks almost like you're writing Chinese calligraphy. Is that a normal holding style or your own?
I don't know.
Just what naturally.
Just what naturally. I don't hold it like this, that's for sure.
The toddler
I hold
style.
It, yeah. I also hold it at the top because that lets me move. You see, move around more like this versus, you know, this. It's like very stiff, so I hold it in the middle more. That definitely helps a lot. And I don't do Chinese calligraphy now. I don't. I am Chinese though, so for those of you who are wondering. So now you can see how some of the values, again, have dried darker. Mamma mia. Okay, so this stupid thing here. See, I just put water on and that totally ruined it. So that's, sometimes you can do it, but sometimes it won't work. And I actually think that might darken that value. So, oh well, we'll have to fix it later. I'm going to leave this for now because it's probably going to dry a little bit. And I'm going to move on to the last one. Actually, really quick. I'm going to just add a little bit of fluff up there. Just sort of push that cloud, I don't know, play with a little bit more shape, funkiness. Now I'm noticing that there's two curves right here that I don't like, and so I'm actually gonna mix a little bit of the shadow color in to, you can see my paint, my palette starts looking like mud, but I quite like those colors and I know how to use those colors in my painting, so it's not daunting to me because, believe it or not, the most common color you see out there is gray. Not green, not blue. It's gray is everywhere. I read that in a book in Edward Seago, and I was like mind blown. I was like, that is so true. And it's gray. Oh, well, maybe I don't like what I did. I need to maybe pop the saturation there a little bit more. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Sometimes I'll use a lid. I have the lid over there, but sometimes I'll have to take out my lid to start getting cleaner color. Sean, are you like looking at my palette and being like, how in the world is she mixing color? I just use every spot there is, basically.
Yeah, someone did post. They were like, I took a look at the palette and I'm incredibly intimidated.
Sorry, guys. It's just...
I mean, as long as it makes sense to you.
It does.
I know people will, you know, lay out, you know, in the whole range of hue from left to right, you know.
Yeah, and that's probably the better way to do it. I didn't clean this palette beforehand, so that's why it's
Is that a sponge bottom on there as well that keeps the wetness on the palette?
Yeah. So that is a very bad choice I did right there. I mean, it's okay, but it's gonna dry slightly darker, and I left this as actually the tone. So right there, that cloud top is actually the tone of the painting, and I'm actually really curious to see if that's gonna dry darker. So I'm just gonna wait and see right now, because there's a very fine line where I can probably start ruining my painting and losing the gesture that I quite enjoy right now. So I'm gonna make sure I don't tip over that. I'm glad people are asking questions.
Yeah, we got quite a few. If you guys have more questions, go to proko.com/556. Because I'll pop into the YouTube chat, but mostly I'm trying to pull from the website. It's a lot cleaner.
Just adding a little bit. Not quite.
And then you said that the fourth thumbnail, you're going to be doing two value study, or you said, or just with
I will show how I'll do a sepia study first. I can definitely show that. It'll be a very simple. I don't know what I'm doing right now. What am I doing right now? Okay, whatever. I'm trying to get that gleam, but I think I just have to leave it for now. It's just looking funky.
You mentioned that you like almost exclusively do gouache for your traditional stuff. Did you start with gouache, or did you start with another medium and then move to gouache when you were training?
I started with gouache.
Oh wow! How did you get on the? I know I'd heard of it in school, but no one had ever like actually. None of the classes they offered had gouache.
I went to one of Mike Hernandez's workshops and I fell in love, and then I taught myself it, and that was it. I just loved it, and I remember for 3 months I was just painting indoors, practicing, because the first few times I went out, my paintings weren't working in value, and then afterwards I was obsessed with painting plein air, and I was outdoor all the time. Every morning, it was crazy. I would run for 6 miles and then I'd go painting. And so it was this routine that I built up that was really awesome. And I really would just, I don't know, it was kind of love at first sight. It was like a love bug. Actually, well, maybe I hated it at first. It was maybe a little bit of like, damn, this keeps drying darker, and how do I fix it? And then after I figured that out, it's like a really steep learning curve, and you kind of just keep getting better. If I'm going to do a value study, I'm going to need to change my water really quick, by the
Sure.
way. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'll be right back, guys.
Over here.
I'm going to change my water because my water is really dirty. and you guys just keep asking questions.
Quick intermission, yeah.
I'll be right back. Is it still live?
Pardon?
Is it still live?
Yeah. We got a quick intermission while we change some water. If you got questions, go to proko.com/556. Drop them there. And if you guys haven't, if you have not seen Tiffany's YouTube video on our channel, like it goes into super detail on a lot of the concepts that she's teaching, but with additional, images on video, just a lot of things that will help you learn these concepts as well.
Okay. So, I think what I'm also gonna do, I'm debating bringing my lid over to paint on that, but I think it should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to do a really quick sepia study. It's probably going to take me just a few minutes, but...
Well, we're getting close to hitting the 2-hour mark as well, so...
Yeah, it's perfect.
Once you finish that, we can likely wrap things up.
Yeah, perfect. I'll do the sepia and I'll do a color and I'll wrap it up. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so again, now sometimes people do value studies with black and white. I like to, ooh, that's too dark. I like to just use sepia and water because that will help me practice my water control. So just, and it's going to be really quick and really simple. So I just want to make sure I get the center of that, where the sun is going through. This one will be a fun one to paint. That's about it. That's what I do. A value study, really quick and dirty, getting the big shapes in. I can show you how I'll lift up. But I won't spend too much detail doing it because where all the interest, I'm going to show you how I can lift really quick. So if I wanted to lift, you can just kind of, so what I'm doing is I'm scratching at the paper and I am dabbing at my towel and basically just...
Yeah, someone was asking earlier, like, if there is a more subtractive style way of working with gouache.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, which I don't do.
Is there one? It seems like really difficult.
A subtractive, like watercolor, is not the same as watercolor because watercolor is opaque. So, What does subtractive mean? Like
I think it's usually like laying down more and then cutting things away, like carving out.
like what I'm doing now. But
This
you
seems
can't-
like the most subtractive way of dealing with gouache that I could
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. Okay.
Kavita's asking, have you always been specifically interested in landscapes? And if not, how do you decide to focus more on landscape paintings?
That's a great question. Yeah, I have primarily been focused mostly on landscapes. I don't know, something about landscapes. I really like portraits as well, and I can appreciate portraits and still lifes, but if it comes to me, you know, wanting to, like, still lifes don't excite me as much as landscapes if I were to, you know, paint a still life. But when I get into a still life, it can be really, I can really get into it. And I'm gonna let that dry just a little bit. And I think, yeah, something about landscapes. I just love landscapes, and for me, I think over portraits or still lifes, there's just something about the nature and the way it calls to you that, you know, it's really a never-ending source of inspiration. So I think that is definitely really fun to continue to explore, and there's so much out there, you know, like there's so many places I want to go to and to paint cityscapes. And I used to hate painting cityscapes as well, and now I've really really enjoy painting, especially like Polish, or not Polish, but European architecture. That's really fun. I find them more interesting than buildings here per se, but I really like that ornateness, kind of implying all those details, so that's really fun. And I used to have a real scare of that, so that was a big overcoming of my point. But I like not just natural landscapes, I like, actually, most of my oil paintings are actually believe it or not, like cityscapes. It's really weird. I don't have that many natural landscapes, so it's quite interesting, but gouache will be mostly natural. And you said how I found that calling? It was just always, I don't know, it was just always there. I think I just had a natural affinity towards it. And I think some people will be like that. They'll just be naturally drawn towards portraits. Like they're really fascinated by the eyes and the way, and me, not so. I do, and I really appreciate it, but not so much as landscapes, I'd say. It just makes a little bit of quinacridone, a magenta. My palette's getting pretty darn messy. So now I'm pushing upward like that to sort of maybe combine that shape right there. Kind of feel like yourself like a conductor,
Yeah.
right? I know to get that glow, I'm gonna need to really dry brush it, so kind of saving that.
Oh, on the subtractive gouache technique, Zhounji was saying, they say, I was referring to a technique where a solid patch of gouache is applied and then removed in sections with a cotton bud,
Oh,
giving it a cloudy sort of look.
I've never tried that, but maybe that definitely might work. Oh, I see. Yeah, that could work. If you paint it thick enough, you get a kind of cool texture. I could see that working.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I know people have done stuff with oil painting, and they've used foil. They used, you know, the scumbling technique, and you know, I'm certain that could work with gouache as well. Sky's the limit. That might start being the wrong value, so like this. Just so I'm using the sky to carve out my shapes. And that's a lot of times how I'll use it. I won't paint the sky first, I'll use the sky to get my more interesting shapes. So I'm gonna, and that's how I should work for everything. My brain doesn't actually work the other way, which is really interesting. I'm trying to really see the grouping right now, and I'm trying to find. So I've actually put quite a lot of water this time here. And I'm mixing yellow ochre, a little bit of spectrum. That's too warm, so it's not working. And usually I don't like painting too watery, but I don't know why I just did that, to be honest. Maybe that was a mistake. I just want these shapes to sort of blend in together. So I'm doing a more watery technique right now.
Jacob Brunn is saying, "Hi Tiffany, those colors are so fresh. I don't know much about gouache. You thin it with water. Is there any other mediums to thin the paint with and make them not dry out, or make them easier to blend or fade better?"
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. It's are there any other mediums to thin the paint out and make it not dry out?
Oh, I don't use medium with gouache. I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah, it seems like is water the.
I think water. I've never used a medium with gouache. It's not oil.
Yeah.
It's opaque watercolor. That's what gouache is. So, if you guys have played around with that, let me know. But I have not. I don't use mediums. It's just water. Just water.
Yeah, it seems like Jacob is looking to like. I know gouache often has a lot of like hard edges. I know the first gouache stuff we recorded was like tiling and things like that, and they're asking, can you make it blend easier? But that would just be
blending is yes, blending with water, it can be tricky. That's where you have to get your values really right, because sometimes if like for example if I tried to blend this shape with this or this, like the water, you can do something like this. Oops. But that doesn't always give you the effect you need. You can have this control, and water will do so much, but sometimes it is tricky. That's the thing, and I think that's why I paint thick. Actually, partly because I can blend better that way, and because I put like here, I put that gradual value, and that blended into the more bluer tones up here. A little too blue. Well, I don't know how it looks on there, but. Looks a little saturated on the TV, but water you can do this way while it's still wet. You can push upward like that, and that's sometimes what I'll do, but rarely. And there's a few ways. Yeah, blending can be hard. It's not like watercolor where it's very loose and thin. You have to have a really good control of value, I would say, with gouache, and then that gets hard because of course everything dries darker. And you have to get used to that as well. But you will get used to it. I promise you will get used to it. What I'm going to do here is I'm finding that edge is just really hard to just get that. I was trying to leave the tone of it, but I'm also trying to do this thing when I'm lifting paint, and I don't really know if that will work. But I'm going to try to do it for you guys and see, just to get a little bit of a softer edge. So you see what I'm doing? I'm scrubbing, and just to get that slightly softer edge. Right there, and here, just putting that down. Okay, now my sky value needs to be a little lighter there, and I know I need to do that. I can only do that. All right, I've used half a tube of gouache. So
half a tube of white.
Half a tube of white.
Kavita's asking, do you prefer to paint in silence or do you listen to music, podcasts?
Both. I like both. Sometimes I'll paint in complete silence for digital and for gouache. And sometimes when I put something, I listen to podcasts a lot when I drive, but sometimes I find that it can be very quickly distracting when I'm listening while I'm painting. And so sometimes music can be too loud. Like I can't hear my thoughts when I'm painting, so I need complete silence. It really depends on the kind of painting, my flow state, and that specific scenario. Sometimes I won't have music, and I'll be like, what's missing? And I'll turn on music, be like, oh, that's what I needed, it was music. And then sometimes I'll turn it on and be like, I think I need music, and then very soon I'll turn it off because it's just too loud and I can't focus, I find. So it depends. Kind of cool. I can look up there and just be like, oh, how's it going?
Yeah. Get that zoomed out view with fresh eyes.
Because that would be my stepping away, right?
Yeah. Brianson's asking, do you have any tips on getting the right consistency when working with gouache? Watching you paint, it's blown my mind how you're making some of those thicker, drier strokes. I find that like most beginners, I tend to use too much water with gouache, but when I try and attempt dry brushing, it seems like the paint is always stuck to the brush and I can't get it on the canvas. Do you have tips to combat this, especially outdoors?
Yeah, when I do, some of it might be having to wait for it to dry. Like right now, I wouldn't be able to dry brush even though I want to, so I'm waiting because I wouldn't be able to do it. and sometimes towards the last end of my stage of my painting, I will almost have no water. Like right now, this is almost no, okay, well there's some water in the paint, but sometimes I use white as a thickening agent, and that will be part of how I get the thicker paint. I'm going to try to demonstrate. Like there, that's still a little bit of water right there, and I got a slightly lighter value, but not, I don't know, it's not there. So dry brush, you have to wait for everything to dry. It's not going to work. So I'm just going to wait for that to dry a little bit. And like I said, I would practice on a scrap piece of paper. You know, practice like, okay, how does that feel? And you see, sometimes that just actually gave me, interestingly enough, it kind of opened up in the middle.
Yeah.
But then when I pressed a little bit harder, it was more solid. So I think it was the strength at which I press. I'm barely holding on. If you can see, I'm just, and I'm just kind of dragging. That gives me a more tapered effect. Versus if I press on more, and I'm really pressing down, that gives me a more solid versus that. And I could so practicing also the weight, how much you're pressing down on your brush, how much weight you're putting in, that's a big factor, as well as the water, I would say. Let's hope that makes sense. Oh no, what are you doing? I'm splashing water all over this thing. Okay, I hope it doesn't die. Hold on, guys. Okay, let's get this piece out. I'm a messy painter, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can still see that it's still pretty wet. And I did work more wet on this one. But the fun part be when I take off the tape. That'll be the tape porn part. I can't wait for that. So while I'm doing that, I'm just gonna maybe adjust some values and some shapes in some other places and paint thicker. So you can see I'm actually gonna try to not even dunk my brush in the water and just use white to sort of get a little bit of a lighter consistency. So, ooh, that was too light. Wrong value right there. You see that? Too light. The clouds are supposed to be more or less a silhouette, right? So that's okay. We'll fix that. So I'm incrementally mixing a little bit of blue. And I'm going back to my flat brush now to get these subtly lighter shapes. So see, I haven't dipped my brush in water at all. And you can see I'm starting to get these sheens of blue. I don't know if that picks up on the camera, but just a little bit up there. Mm-hmm. I want to break up the shape just a little bit right there. Oh, and you know what a cool thing is? Oh, man. You know, I did a tone, but see that part right there? That's a tone of the paper. I could have totally left it for these clouds right there. That's unfortunate, because now I have to kind of make that artificially with clean white and permanent yellow deep. It won't work with yellow ochre. It has to be permanent yellow deep, I think. So I'm actually gonna see if I can. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab my lid really quick. So this is my other, I use a lid sometimes, and I'm just going to do that. And then let's see if we can get a little bit more of those. But you see how dark it's drying right there, by the way. Like all this is drying too dark. Water, that's why I like dry brushing, because if you mix water and you put it on top, it doesn't necessarily give you a lighter value. It's actually going to dry darker, believe it or not, which is really annoying sometimes. But so I'm just adding those clouds in now. Here I actually left a little bit of the tone, which worked fine, and I'm going to just brush a little bit there. A little bit of an awkward shape right there, so I need to fix that. And I'm just trying to be, let's mix.
Esbraf Kin is asking, when you're done with a painting session, how do you clean the color-soaked sponge palette so that it's ready for the next use?
I don't clean it. I just leave it like this. Yeah, I'll spray it with some water, and I just don't. I should clean it. But I like to leave the color so I can sort of kind of reactivate them and use them. But I always squeeze fresh paint for a new session. But sometimes when I'm touching up old paintings, I'll just use the paint that I already have. So that depends.
And do you do anything to prevent the sponge from getting moldy, or?
Yeah, you know, I've had people have told me that they have problems with that, and I mean, I don't think my paint gets moldy. Like, but some people have said, I think it depends on the weather where they live, and some people have said their paint gets moldy, and I don't have that problem. But I do actually let it air out, so I'll actually completely dry.
Yeah, I've had it where I like lift the sponge, and then on the bottom, it's like, time to check this thing. That looks normal. I don't see any.
I don't know.
I don't see any cultures on there.
Oh my god, maybe I should check for that. Maybe. Okay, I'm just trying to add a little bit of some lighter clouds on the top to get that subtle. This is not looking like how I wanted to. That blue is just too much, so I need to erase this or something. So I'm trying to use a little bit of water, but then sometimes you'll smear that color, so you have to be very careful about that. So the last painting is kicking my butt. Okay, so I think I keep mixing too much purple. That's what it is. Just go back to big shapes. Yeah.
Kavita's asking, how do you get over being nervous to paint in front of strangers?
Oh, I just don't care. You mean like in plein air or no?
Yeah. Do you get nervous when painting in public / plein air?
No, I just forget people are around me. I think I just become so immersed in my painting, I forget that I'm in public sometimes, and I'll forget to drink water. I'll forget a lot of things. But yeah, I used to, and it's just that matter of, you know, it is hard to get over. You know, it's not like, I just kind of learned that, you know, people will come and look. Most of the time I don't get bothered because I think I have a very resting bitch face. I do. Like, I just look mean when I'm focused. So I think people, and when they do, sometimes I just won't talk to them and they get the point that, I mean, no, that sounds really mean. I'll say, hi, thanks, and then I won't make conversation with them, and then they get the point, and then they'll walk away.
Yeah, it's like, I'm working here.
Yeah, I'm working here. I don't like to be bothered when I'm painting. No, I hate it when people come up and talk to me. They can look, but once they start trying to make small talk, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, especially with something that dries so fast, you kind of like.
Yeah, it's like, don't
strike while the
bother me.
iron's hot.
Exactly. Okay, that looks okay. Maybe I'll keep the glow. So I actually didn't need to. I'm gonna try to do that last dry brush effect glow and also lighten up that bottom part. Those are the last two things I need to do. So I'm going to mix on my palette. My white's getting contaminated, which is no good. So see, a little bit of red can turn it too dark. That's why I need to be it needs to be very dry, this. And I almost reckon that's not dry enough. So I'm gonna try. Oh shit, I'm scared. I'm scared.
This is the Indiana Jones and the Boulder scene. You're like, oh, okay.
That just looks funny. That didn't work. I'm trying to get that. It does work sometimes, and I just don't think sometimes it takes a couple of tries to get that perfect sort of light ray. And it's because my values around it are, I think, too dark, and I need to also mix up. I keep looking at the screen instead of my reference. It's super weird.
It's hard to keep your eyes off of like a 40-inch TV in front of you. You know?
True. Oh my god, I'm gonna ruin it. Okay, so that clearly ruined, so I need to go. I'm just not gonna do the ray. So I actually kind of liked how it looked without that ray, and that's an example where, you know, I would not copy the photos. So I need to just go back and block in those shapes that but with the right value. That will be the tricky part.
Sunflower Kiss is asking, what are your thoughts on acrylic gouache?
Yeah, I've only used white with acrylic gouache, that's it. So I don't have extensive experience. In my example, it hasn't really differed from normal gouache, which is cool, but I would say try it and see what you think. That would be my suggestion, and compare it with gouache and see what you find, and And you can decide which one. Oh, I ruined it. Which one you like. I liked it before. Dang it. I think I still kind of kept that glow, but not really. It's really frustrating when you do this stuff, right? But then you problem solve. That's how you problem solve.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of acrylic gouache. I assume it's some kind of hybrid between acrylic and
Yeah,
gouache.
there is a such thing as acrylic. Yeah, I think my shapes are looking funky. I've only ever used it with white. So it's semi-dry, my paint's semi-dry. I think I'm just putting down a lot of wrong values, so that's why. But maybe I'll keep that. I want to fix. Actually, let's see. I want to fix this shape a little bit. I mean, quite picky. My shapes to sort of fill that in just a little bit more. My palette. I'm gonna move this over here because I don't need it. And then, actually, I don't think the last thing I want to do is lighten that up. I'm gonna attempt one more time. Just get all the white I have, and sometimes I'll do this. Just kind of makes a fresh new batch. The white today is very watery, which is quite annoying to me. It's a little too watery. I think I sprayed maybe my palette slightly too much.
Do you find different colors tend to be more or less watery, or are they all generally the same consistency?
Viridian is like very dry, so definitely a little different. Viridian will be quite dry, and it dries in the tube quite fast. I'm going to very much ruin this. Trying to get that blend. Oh, that was really bad. Okay. I'm painting at a very awkward angle right now, so I feel like I need to move.
Yeah, feel free to move around if you need to.
I'm going to, maybe I'll paint upward like that. So I was trying to get a lighter value, but actually it might dry darker, so we'll see. Maybe I should leave it. It usually takes me a couple tries to get the value correct. For a sky, I'm usually trying to just blend this in a little bit. I just don't like that hard, but I think it might dry okay. As you get to paint gouache more, you'll kind of know its tendencies. You'll kind of be like, oh, I know that will dry okay, or be like, oh, I know that won't dry. Or sometimes, and not always. Sometimes it'll surprise you, and it will dry okay. So if I wanted to add some telephone poles, I would have to mix really thick paint, and it's too wet right now, by the way, but I can barely just do it, but I just pull up a little bit like that, and I'm just trying to get this. I'm being too perfect right now, which is really annoying, so I don't like it when I'm like that. But
Alessandro is asking, do you have a favorite effect that when you're painting gouache? Is there a thing that you like to do the most?
Yeah, dry brush. It's like my favorite. I love dry brushing and seeing. You know what? I should have brought a larger painting. I had it, and I should have brought it to show you guys, but I had a lot of dry brush, and I was having a lot of fun playing around with that, and
I feel like the one you brought here has like a lot of dry brushing going on.
Yeah, most of them will. I'm gonna try to but the one I had was like, this is pretty thick right there. Looks so off on the but the one I had at home was really thick. I'm gonna so I'm dry brushing a little bit right now, cutting into the shapes a little bit, trying to make sure that sky is hopefully gonna dry. I'm just cutting in a little bit of these light shapes into the clouds. Maybe, oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Sometimes that happens. I'm just like, why? It's just too thick. Oh god. Okay, so maybe, I don't know why I did that. It just doesn't look good to me. I saw it in the photo and I did it. That's why. And it's just too dark. So maybe we'll leave it for now, and I'll have to fix it later. But I also just want to just redo some of the...
Aman Kumar is asking, how do you balance the composition in your paintings?
Well, these ones, I'm mainly focusing on the clouds, but usually I'm thinking of my variety of shapes. So if I have a large mass, I'm breaking up some of that mass, but I have some areas of rest down here. Actually, really, side note, cool, the tone right there. You see that looks like city. Looks like a little bit of a city. I'm going to leave that. So I'm always thinking of my shapes. That's how I balance. I'm thinking of how the big masses I have coupled with the smaller masses and how those shapes connect. And, you know, if not all my shapes are too broken up, right? I want to make sure I have a variety. So in a good painting, and Marco Bucci, my good friend, and he says the same thing, where you should have a variety of a few large shapes, medium shapes, and some small shapes. And shapes, to me, is what... I'm going to try to brush this in. I might be doing it a little prematurely. I'm just trying to brush in a little bit of light, but it's too wet, so it's not going to work. I'm gonna have to let it dry, but while I let it dry, I can go ahead and rip the tape off for you guys to see.
Yeah,
since we're already nearing to 3 hours. Yeah, and hopefully when I talk a little bit more, it'll dry and I'll add those. You see, it's so wet. You see how right there? I think I just I accidentally dropped water there. Okay, so I'm just gonna rip that off.
Does the tape ever pull
yeah.
more into it, or?
No, I learned that a trick to pull the painting, to rip the tape, is to have it angled at 45 degrees. So I'm going to angle it like this and then tear it like that. And then that's going to, because it used to tear my painting, or tear the paper.
Yeah.
And so if I sort of have it like this, sort of fold it like this, sorry, like this.
Yeah.
And I can sort of pull at an angle like that. And that should give me, see, it didn't rip the paper this time. And there you have it.
Awesome.
4 little thumbnails. There's, you know, now that I see this, there's maybe definitely some things I could fix, you know, little things. And sometimes when you rip off the tape, you find a few more things you can poke in, and here and there, maybe a shape right there, maybe a little bit of dry brushing right there. Here. I'm trying to dry.
Yeah, just blow dryer. Do you ever use a blow dryer? Like,
I don't actually, but I could. I just really want to add that last part right there. I'm gonna step away really quick just to see how they look, because they look totally different from. So let's see. Yeah, they look all right, I guess, from where I'm standing. I can't see the last one because it's so wet and it's reflecting. But. Alright, I think it's just about right. I'm gonna add that thick. That's that sliver.
Final.
Maybe that didn't work. It was too pasty, too white. I need a little bit more. I need to work on that last one. See, that value dried too dark there. Let's go to 3. I'll fix this up. You can ask me a few more questions.
Sure. Let's see. So do most colors with gouache dry darker, or is there a variety of differences when they dry?
I would say definitely. That's a good question. I never actually noticed that. That's actually something that would be good for me to.
Like a little science experiment.
Yeah, to actually figure out. I just don't know if some colors dry darker. So in my opinion, they just all do kind of dry darker. But like, well, for example, I did know like this dry darker. To the point where you can't really, it works for my painting, but you couldn't really see the contrast. I would have to make some of that purple a little bit more and add that in. I think darker colors trying to, like that already just, again, dry darker. And I probably have to go through it again, like that little spot right there, dry darker. So it just, sometimes I'll use my finger, by the way, to just sort of drag across and find a little bit of that plate. You can dry brush like this as well. I paint with my finger and it's really fun. So I have a feeling I'm gonna just overwork this painting and I need space from it. So I'm just gonna fix that value. That's a little bit better right there, but I don't like I don't like those shapes I added. I should have just left it. It was good at one point. I don't like that sliver of shapes. I'm gonna break that up a little bit and actually just cover that back up, and then we're done.
Have you tried casing? And I've heard that's
yeah.
similar, but
Heather Martin does casing, I think, and she's another really awesome gouache artist. And I have not tried it, but I've seen that looks better. I've heard about it. Actually, no, I didn't buy it. Did I buy it? Oh, I did buy it, and I never tried it.
Oh, really?
I just realized that I bought it and I didn't try it. So I have, and I never tried it, and I will let you guys know when I do.
Yeah, I think we also got some. Someone sent us some casing to Stan. He was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to try it," and I don't remember if we ever. I think he did test it out, but we didn't film a comparison video or anything.
Oh, okay, yeah. I would have to play around with it a little bit and see for myself, but I'm gonna do one more. So this is where I add my lightest light. So one last thing, as things are drying, I'm gonna go back, and that's where I add, you know, if I wanted to add a little bit more delicacy right there, I can maybe add it right there, you know, just a little bit of light hitting the top, maybe like right here, though that might have been a really bad, okay, that still worked. Maybe just a little bit like that, and that's not white, that's lemon yellow with white. And that's oftentimes how I really like to get my highlights. Lemon yellow and linden green are the lightest, some of the lightest value colors you can get. And they work really well for kind of brushing in subtle changes like this. And just to sort of add a finishing touch. Maybe, yeah, but not too much. You have to be very delicate about it. And maybe now that I have that pure color, I'm going to, that's Holbein Pink with lemon yellow. I'm gonna maybe do this, and then now maybe I'm gonna just, no, that totally didn't work. So that's an example of sometimes how thick I can go, but in that case I needed to just play around with that a little bit and brush it in. I'm gonna need a little bit more lemon yellow. Holbein Pink's actually a pretty dark value.
Yeah, someone in the comments is saying casing's good for surface prep since it's waterproof. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Waterproof. Gouache is definitely not waterproof.
Yeah.
So I just added a little texture. You actually can't pick it up, but I guess it works okay. But it might be too textury. I don't know at this point how to let that go. I think the paint itself is really gloppy, but it adds a little bit of surface texture, so we'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's looking great.
Thanks. I had a lot of fun, actually.
Cool. Well, we'll pop back to, let's see, main view of us. So thanks so much for watching. Where can people find your stuff?
So I have Instagram. You can follow me at Tiffanie Mang Art. On my Instagram, it's my logo TM with the yellow circle. I do have Facebook, but I don't go on it at all. So I would say the main thing is Instagram. My website is tiffaniemang.com. I have all my originals here for sale, and as well as digital prints. And you can actually make your own digital prints out of my artwork on my website. So I've actually worked with a really cool developer, and I'm working my printing company here in San Diego, and they do awesome prints. So any artwork that you see actually on my site, you can actually play around and make a digital print, make a canvas print, or even of my gouache work as well. And my email is tiffaniemang.com. Sorry, that's not my email. My email is tiffaniemangart@gmail.com. And I also have Gumroad, where I have some free tutorials there, though I haven't updated that in a while, but you can find a lot of other stuff, some older stuff on there that's still good. My YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Tiffanie Mang Art, as well, where I have digital and gouache videos. And I also post working with MFA, Made for Artists, which is started by Kwang Ho, another amazing oil painting artist, and I do videos for them as well. And I'll also be working with Proko on a gouache series as well, which for slowly chugging away. That might take a while, but it's going to happen. So
yeah, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah.
Cool.
Follow me on Instagram and feel free to reach out and or email me. I check Instagram or email the most. Sometimes I might miss the Instagram, so maybe email me. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for watching. We will see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Cool.